Hello and welcome to the Con Couple. I'm Richard.
I'm annoyed that this is our follow-up episode.
Follow up to what?
No, just the furries actually did like a really good job. Like we've got more views on that episode than we do any other episodes. And now we're gonna go back to what was an unpopular episode, which we're not actually at a con and have to like vamp it somehow.
This is true.
Also, now the furries are my favorite people. Sci-fi energy need to step it up.
What's your actual name?
Caroline.
Thank you. One of these days I'm going to win this debate about having a consistent intro.
People like our
No,
inconsistency.
they don't.
Inconsistency is a form of consistency.
Uh-huh. And we go to a frankly baffling number of cons every year. And for the first weekend this year, we're not at a con.
Yeah, I know we talked about going to one in West Virginia that was small, but it was kind of illegit, and I guess we could have gone, but
It was kind of sketchy, but we were kind of tired, and just, yeah.
so we're doing a non-con episode this week, which I know y'all love. And by love, I mean no one listens to these.
Yep.
It's fine.
Again, like our consistent listenership is like 3 people, and then there's whoever's listening based on the con they've just been to.
Yeah.
That's fine.
No, it's absolutely fine. We don't have more than 3 people. We have like 10-ish.
Ish.
It's hard to actually tell with the different metrics generally. We except that we are a small podcast.
Yeah.
But that is fine.
We do not need to be anything more than that. So, this week we're going to talk about something we've actually recorded an episode on before, but you were kind of...
Well,
Yep.
we did this on multiple car trips, and I also put it together when I was like, on a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
During the medical scare saga, and there was one point when we were recording that where you just started going off on a tangent about nothing.
Yeah, I was very tired. Like, that episode did not make it to air. We were mostly doing it as a way to, like, deal with the psychological stress of the medical stuff.
Yep.
Fun fact, this podcast is also our therapy.
Yep. It's cheaper, sort of.
It's cheaper, and it's probably more effective than some therapy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, this episode is entitled Con Icebergs.
So I had to explain to him what an iceberg is. It's like an internet thing where you get more and more specific and less well known as you go down it, basically. So this is a con iceberg, not a con controversy iceberg. We're not talking about controversies, and it is limited to like stuff that occurs at cons that we go to. Generally, we'll talk a little bit about outside stuff.
Yep.
Also, I don't remember fully what I put on here. Neither do you.
Neither do I. I was extremely tired by the end of the last time we tried to record this, so, it's fine.
So yeah, we'll basically explain what these various things are as we go deeper and deeper. I will say, the first tier of the iceberg, like level 1, because remember, it's an iceberg, so there's like one thing that's like above sea level, and then a bunch of stuff that's below, because that's how icebergs are. Get deeper, get more intense, blue. If you were somebody who's like literally set foot in a convention ever, you might want to skip like the first 15-ish minutes of this episode, because it's going to be going over some pretty basic stuff. Unless you like our humor, in which case...
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Case in point. So, yeah. So, do you want to get us started then?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
We should mention, as per usual, we are recording this podcast in our car.
And I do have a list, but I'm not driving.
Yep. In this case, we are just driving back from a supermarket. But because we're nuts at the supermarket, that's a 3-hour drive from our house.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're idiots. It's fine. We were inside yesterday, and I think that drove us both a little stir crazy.
It drove me stir crazy. I think you were fine.
Yeah, but I also it's a good justification for me to not do the various like housework tasks that have been building up for me.
Yeah, I thought you were going to do those yesterday.
I did some of them.
You did clear off the table.
Yeah, we have a table again. That's a
good.
plus.
I will also say I'm a bit annoyed that we didn't save this because I got to figure. April's a weird month for us con-wise because half the stuff in April has now been moved to March or May this year. So don't know what's going on there. We'll figure that out when we get to April.
We'll figure that out.
April's a much nicer month than February, though. So
yeah, we're currently driving through it's not even bad weather. It's just kind of meh.
Instead of doing this, we could just review the figure skating gala.
No.
The figure skating gala is great.
Look,
the first ever ice skating winner from Kazakhstan, danced as a panda and was given stuffed pandas by Jackie Chan.
So that's not in our wheelhouse. So
It's in my wheelhouse.
Ugh.
Fine.
Your wheelhouse is very weird. Okay.
Tier 1.
Tier 1.
Registration.
Yep. So generally speaking, this is going to be the first thing you do at any convention. Registration, the art of going in and getting your badge. Now, depending on the con, this might mean massive lines. This might mean going into a quiet room where there's nobody there because it's a relatively small con. In most cases, you will be presenting some kind of evidence that you pre-bought your ticket, or you will be buying at the door. Depends on the con, depends on you, all of that jazz. If a con sells out, you need to buy your tickets in advance. Whereas some cons, even if they sell out online, do keep some at the door.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Yeah, so when they say sell out online, what they really mean is that's just the last time that they can actually accommodate you registering early because they need to get stuff ready.
Yep, that is also a factor sometimes.
Other times they actually sell out. And some cons don't cap tickets and other cons do.
Yep. And again, some cons don't cap tickets because they don't need to. Some cons don't cap tickets because they need to, but they want to keep getting money.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is not a complaint podcast. This is just some cons are going to be a lot busier than others, and that's going to affect things.
Yeah.
Some cons, you don't actually need to go to registration because they mail your badge out to you. They are.
That's later in the iceberg. Stop ruining the iceberg.
Okay, I am spoiling the iceberg.
No, it's fine. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yep.
At least I think it's later in the iceberg. I don't remember this in general.
Yeah. But yeah, so generally speaking, the one thing I'm going to say about registration, the people who volunteer to work at registration are the most overworked, underappreciated people at any con,
mm-hmm.
and it behooves you to say thank you to them when you get your badge.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice to them, even if there are problems. Those problems are almost certainly not their fault, and they are working their collective butts off.
Yep.
Any more?
No, that's pretty much it.
Cool.
I think I wrote Vanders Hall. I mean, meant Vendors Hall.
Vendors Hall. Yeah, you were on some interesting drugs at the point when you wrote this list originally.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Vendors Hall, this is going to be a big draw at a lot of cons. Again, depending on con size, it's anything from Sangawa Project's Vendors Hall, for example, is 5 tables in a room that at any other con would be a panel room. Those tables are selling interesting stuff. Whereas at something like Gen Con, their Vendors Hall takes up everything from Hall A through, I think it's J,
mm-hmm.
and those halls are massive.
Mm-hmm.
So, they have literally hundreds, probably thousands of vendors. And again, depending on the size of the convention, all of that jazz, you can do that however you want. It's worth noting, most vendors will take card nowadays. Some of them do prefer cash. And generally speaking, when it comes to budgeting for a vendor's hall, if you want a trick for making sure you don't overspend your budget in a vendor's hall, get that budget out in cash before you come to the con.
Also means on occasion you may not have to pay sales tax. You didn't hear that from me.
Yeah. Some of them were, so generally speaking, if you want to work to a budget, bring whatever your budget is in cash and know that once it's gone, and you're done. We've seen a number of people do that. However, if you want to do that, get the cash out at your bank first. Don't use the convention center ATMs because those will definitely overcharge you. Okay? You got anything to add to the vendors hall?
Nope.
This episode's going to end up being mostly me.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because except for a couple of these, it's fine. But you're good at explaining things in your sexy British voice, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Plus, I got to put the tier list together, or the iceberg list together.
You did. Next.
Artist Alley.
So, some of you might be wondering why this is a separate category to the vendors hall. The simple reason is that at some cons, they are separate. Not all. Some cons will just intermix them. Some cons will have a section of the vendors hall that is nominally Artist Alley, and some cons will have an entire separate room for Artist Alley. And again, this depends on the type of con, the size of it, what rooms do they have available, all of that jazz. But the difference primarily should be a vendors hall is selling stuff that isn't necessarily made by the people selling it. So maybe they are selling anime figures that they have imported from Japan. Maybe they're selling those prop weapons that we see at every con. Maybe they are like selling stuff that they bought off Temu at an upsell of like 400%.
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of those. Artist Alley, anything in the Artist Alley should have been made either by the people selling it or by somebody they know and are friends with. Like,
and keep in mind, made can mean a lot of things in this context. I've definitely seen artists who design stuff and then outsource that to a factory to then make, but they did come up with the original design concept themselves.
Yeah, like artists in particular, if they're selling prints, they probably didn't print it on a printer that they have at home. They probably created the digital artwork, then sent it to a company to actually do the printing. But they will have designed the artwork itself. Same goes for like if they're selling pins, they probably don't have a pin making machine at home, but they will have designed whatever the design of the pin is and outsource the actual printing. That's fine. Don't have a problem with that. But Artist Alley ideally should be original works created by the people selling them, or again, sometimes you do get like groups of artists who'll get together so they can like pool resources, buy a single table, sell a bunch of their own different stuff. That's not at all uncommon in Artist Alley. Like there's a store we go to sometimes that I can't for the life of me remember what it's called, but again, it's a collection of artists who chipped it together so they had a place to sell all of their stuff, and that's a great idea.
Yeah,
because again, vendors' tables and Artist Alley tables do cost money. That's part of the way that the con pays for its space. The idea being that they pay the con X amount for a table, the con uses that to pay for the space overall, and then they make the money back, by selling their wares. And that's fine.
And it's always a bit of a gamble whether or not they're going to make money back. Yeah. And I do get that with vendors a lot of the time.
Yeah, depends entirely on the size of the con. I remember a few years ago, the first year of Animate, I know some vendors were complaining that they didn't break even on that event because it had fewer people than what was expected for the size of the con. And again, every vendor knows they're taking a risk, and generally speaking, a convention will estimate how many people are going to be there and will inform the vendors of, we think, this many people are going to turn up. Now, those numbers are always estimates because there might be a massive snowstorm the weekend of your con, and therefore the actual numbers of people who turned up are significantly lower than expected. That's not really in the convention's control.
Next, we have special guests.
So almost every convention will have special guests, depending on the nature of the convention and the size of the convention. And I'm going to be honest, that's going to be a caveat on just about everything I say this episode. That the special guests may range from massive well-known celebrity to person who's popular within the community.
Yep.
Like special guests we've seen at GalaxyCon is people like William Shatner. The special guests at
MCFC were Pandez
and Quack Conk.
Both of whom are very nice, but they're not. They can walk around the grocery store on their own.
Yeah.
Without running into any problems.
Yeah. And again, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Different, there are different cons for different things. So at most anime cons, they'll generally try to bring in a voice actor or two, who have done some kind of voice acting in anime or video games or something of that ilk. The larger corporate cons are becoming what the internet has decided are the celebrity petting zoo model of con, which incidentally, love that phrase. It's very accurate.
It's later on the list.
Yep. Where they have a lot of celebrities and they're a big draw. So they have a lot of special guests. So again, depending on what you're after from your special guests, kind of determines what kind of con you will need to go to in that regard. And if you're people like us for whom the special guest isn't a particularly big draw, it's usually just a case of, oh, cool, that person's going to be there. Then that's fine.
We have seen more media, and I'm hoping to get an interview or two with some people who are, I think, in the same situation we are right now, which is special guests are kind of taking over the con space, and the celebrity petting zoo model is, which we might talk about a little bit later, is taking over the con space. And for people who don't go to cons for that, it's kind of ruining it a little bit.
Yep.
It's getting to the point where it's hard to just go to a con and want to do stuff that's not celebrities if they have a lot of celebrities there.
Yep.
Particularly in our area, I think, just because we don't have any big cons that aren't celebrity focused at this moment.
Yeah.
So, except for Colossal Con, sort of.
Sort of. Again, Colossal Con does not care about its celebrities at all.
Speaking of which, next we have cosplay.
Cosplay. So, cosplay is costume play.
Mm-hmm.
The entire point of cosplay is to wear a costume, dress like a character from a show you like, or like your own interpretation of a book character, or there's a lot of different ways you can take cosplay, and generally speaking, at a convention, you are going to see some cosplay. And again, depending on the convention, there could be a lot, there could be relatively little. Board game cons, not a lot of cosplay. That's not really an element that they're focused on.
Except if you're me.
Unless you're you. Like, if you see somebody in a ball gown at a ball gown at a board game con, it's probably her.
Can we just shout out that MCFC last week? I was not in a ball gown for day 0 of that con. Which,
Nobody
by the way,
recognized you?
Nobody recognized me.
Yep. They didn't recognize us until they heard my voice.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, it's you guys, hey! And yeah, if you'd been in a ball gown on that day, they would have recognized you.
Yep.
Again, it's your signature, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But
yeah, so it is worth noting generally that there is no wrong way to cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
You
don't also have to actually play in your cosplay, which was a misconception I had when we started going cons. Like, I thought you had to be in character constantly if you were in cosplay. You don't. Like, you can do that, but you don't have to.
Yeah, most people don't do that. But generally speaking, cosplay is there as a way to have fun, as a way to enjoy yourself, and like frequently it's a way to feel confident. Like, I know people who, when they are like in their normal real world lives, are a bit like nervous and scared, and then they dress as a character who makes them feel good about themselves, like makes them feel strong or powerful or attractive or any of those things, and they get a confidence boost from doing that, and that is fantastic. I can't overstate that. Like, I know of at least one person who wrote an essay a while back. You can probably find out, I forget their name, but basically said that, like, in the really real world, they would never feel comfortable like going to the beach in a bikini. Whereas when they go to a con, they can wear a cosplay that's basically covering about as much of their body as a bikini would, but because it's a costume for a character who they think is sexy and makes them feel sexy, it makes them feel better about themselves and gives them the confidence to wear that at a convention. And I think that's great. And cosplay itself should be something that like lifts people up and makes them feel good about themselves. And for the most part, it is. And if you just want to walk around a convention and see a bunch of people dressed as like characters from your favorite anime, great, you can do that. That's one of the things that's wonderful about cons.
Yeah. Relatedly, we have photo shoots.
So some cons will organize specific photo shoots for specific fandoms. So, for example, we've seen like Yu-Gi-Oh groups get together at cons and do a photo shoot together, where they're all in like dressed as costumes from different things. We've seen a Greek gods themed one.
That one wasn't great.
No, that was mostly just a group of friends organized that who were very clearly like trying to just do Epic the Musical cosplay. And we have our own personal takes on the Greek gods. And we turned up, we took a couple of photos and then left because it was very clear that most of the people there didn't really want us there. But again, like, generally speaking, this is an opportunity to get some professionally done photos. Some cons will charge you for that. Some cons will just provide it as a service free of charge. Again, depends on the con. But generally speaking, it's a good way to meet people who are into the same thing that you are. So if you are going to a Yu-Gi-Oh photo shoot, the odds are the people turning up to that in Yu-Gi-Oh cosplay are probably Yu-Gi-Oh fans. Unless one of those people is me.
Bridget and James are very into you watching more Yu-Gi-Oh! We probably should do that this afternoon.
Yeah, we should probably try and watch a bit more Yu-Gi-Oh! Today.
Yeah, these are fun. You can set them up. They're generally done by amateur photographers, and sometimes people are running around with them.
Yep.
Next, we have panels.
So most conventions will have programming of some sort. This is effectively the stuff to fill your time when you're not shopping or just wandering the halls. This is the actual like scheduled programming, and it breaks down into a number of different things. One of the big things is panels. So the principle of panel is that it is some kind of entertainment at the con, and this can take a whole lot of different forms. So the most obvious and basic panel is the lecture panel.
Yep.
where somebody who knows something about some subject or other turns up and tells you about it. So you have done a lecture-style panel on the ethics of Pokemon, where it's basically a lecture-style panel in which you talk about Pokemon, the ethical implications of Pokemon, and all of that stuff. And you can give that panel because you are an expert in ethics.
Yeah, I will say, like, to be an expert on a TV show or something like that, if you just do, like, a modicum of research on a TV show, that's really different than, like, being an expert in the field. I do want to point out, though, that ethics is a legitimate field of study, so occasionally I see ethics panels that are not done by professional ethicists and very clearly didn't even look into the basics of ethical theory.
And they're just kind of weighing it because they think ethics is a thing that everybody just kind of knows about.
And that's how we get Nazis.
Yeah. Anywho.
To be clear, I do try to be really respectful of somebody who actually is a PhD expert, of realizing that, like, the type of expertise you're going to get for different fields is going to be different. And, like, it's not an academic conference, so I don't expect people to have a level of academic standards. But I do want to encourage you, if you are interested in the more academic side lecture panels, particularly if you're somebody who wants to present at a lot of cons, look at what actually are fields of expertise, like ethics or also philosophy, and see if you can get, like, somebody who's a professional in that field to maybe help you a little bit with your presentation. Because most of us happily will do that for free.
Yep.
If you just email us.
Yep. And again, it's also worth noting that, like, as you said, you don't have to be, like, an expert to do one of these panels. Like, we went to a panel that was on, like, the history of Sonic.
Yep.
You don't need somebody with a history PhD to present that panel.
No. But I do expect people to do, like, a modicum amount of research and not use AI. Which generally, I will say, the vast majority of lecture panels we've been to have been great.
Yes, I have not seen anybody use AI at that stuff outside of, like, the occasional AI-generated image. And generally speaking, cons have a very, like, anti-AI attitude, which I appreciate. And it says something that, though it does say something that one of the best, like, panels, generally speaking, with panels, you can tell the people who have experience with that kind of presentation and speaking.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to be honest, anytime somebody is a teacher in their real life, I can tell.
Yep.
Like, it's just, it's like anything else. It's a skill set that you practice and get better at. Like, somebody who's done a lot of panels at a lot of different cons, they're generally better at it than somebody who's just starting out. And that's not to say if you've never done a panel, you shouldn't try. Like, you don't get to be good at it without practicing it. Just be aware your first time's probably not going to be as good as you hope, and you will get better.
Yeah.
That's fine. Other kinds of panels, game show panels are a pretty frequent thing you'll see at cons.
Yep. This
can range just from, like, trivia on a certain topic. Maybe they do, like, a Jeopardy-style board. Right the way up to people like Grego, who does, like, builds their own software and does recreations of game shows from days gone. Some of which are really, really good. Like, there's a bunch of different game shows that I'd not heard of that I've heard of now as a result of seeing them done by people like Grego, and they're great fun to do at cons. Because those usually rely a lot on audience participation. Speaking of audience participation, a lot of panels live or die by the quality of the audience participation. Like, for example, we did a panel on ships.
Yep.
And by ships, I mean romantically shipping two characters. And the entire point of that one was the audience members shout out or, suggest ships. The hosts then do a quick Google search, look up the two, and tell you whether or not they think the ship is legit or not. That was a cute panel. But if the audience hadn't been willing to participate and suggest things, that panel probably would have sucked. So just be aware when you're planning a panel how much audience participation you're going to need and all of that jazz. Are there any, like, major panel types I'm missing at this point?
A couple of them I mention a little bit later, but those are kind of some of the main ones generally. Cosplay contest.
So this is usually a big draw. It's frequently Saturday evening as a general rule of thumb. And this is the big event at a lot of cons, because this is where all of the various cosplayers who want to compete walk across stage. Now, there are a lot of things that go into a cosplay contest, and I'm assuming we'll probably talk more about those in detail later. But generally speaking, cosplay contests have two categories, one of which is construction and one of which is performance.
Not all cons have each of these. Some cons will have neither. They'll have just a basic walk-on competition. This is fairly common at smaller cons where the judging will just be what looks cool.
Yep.
Construction generally has pre-judging associated with it where you go into a room. The majority of cons have this, and I will say about 50-ish% of cons have performance as a category.
Yes. So performance is basically you are giving some sort of performance in your costume. This could be dancing, this could be singing, this could be acting out a scene. This could be a whole bunch of different stuff, and we've seen a whole bunch of different stuff. With that said, dancing, for a while, like idol dancing in particular, really took over cosplay masquerades. It seems to be on the downswing now.
At least in our area.
At least in our area.
In part because I think they now have a separate idol dance competition that sometimes is entered instead of it being part of the main masquerade.
Yes.
We'll have idol dancing be its own competition.
Which is fair. So generally speaking, the point of this is to put on a good show for all the audience, and they will frequently then give out prizes of some sort. Frequently split into novice, journeyman, and master. But again, it varies kind of wildly, con to con, how all of that is done.
Cool. We're almost finished with tier 1. Thank you for those of you who have been to a con before and are just listening to us ramble about very basic things that exist at cons.
Yep.
Like this next one, the schedule, which
Okay.
some people don't look at.
Yeah, we have discovered this. So most cons will have a schedule.
Okay.
The schedule is there specifically to tell you what is where and when.
Mm-hmm.
This is a schedule. You would think this is a very basic concept that everybody should understand, but some people just kind of don't for whatever reason. However, once again, varies wildly from con to con how it's presented. So some cons will print a full-on book with a schedule in it that tells you exactly when stuff is and what the panels are. That's great. We love it when cons do that. Looking at you, most fur cons, weirdly. Then you've got the cons that will give you a paper schedule that's basically just a print off of a Google Sheets form.
Yep.
That will at least tell you where stuff is and at what time.
Mm-hmm.
But usually doesn't include panel descriptions. Looking at you, Colossal Con. This is fine. It's not the best method, but it works, and generally speaking, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the cons where the schedule is just online and you have to look at it through your phone. Gonna be honest, not as big a fan of that.
Yeah, many use apps. Some have their own app, which means you have to download like 16 different apps if you go to as many cons as we do.
I have at least 4.
Yep.
Then there's the ones who just use things like why am I blanking on the really terrible one?
Venti?
Aventi, thank you. Aventi is aggressively mid. Like, it kind of works. It's not great on phones. And most of the time you're going to be looking at this on your phone. So yeah, generally speaking, we prefer printed paper schedules, but we understand that a lot of cons can't justify spending the money to do that, because that is an extra expense. Especially if you're printing like a full-on book for it. I freely admit, MCFC last week had basically my favorite version, which is printed program guide, which had panel descriptions and everything else, and also a smaller pocket guide that was just convention maps and timetable. Wonderful job, guys. Love that to bits. So yeah, there should logically be a schedule of events. Just be advised, not everything always ends up on the schedule.
Yeah.
And sometimes the schedule is overpacked because they put like every celebrity photograph meetup on there, in spite of the fact that that's a time you have to sign up for in advance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So finally, to round out the basics of, if you've been to a con, you probably know about this, is maid cafes.
So maid cafes are a thing that have started coming into cons. They're not at all cons yet, not by a long chalk. In fact, they're probably only at like, half the anime cons we go to, if that.
Mm-hmm.
But a maid cafe, generally speaking, is a group of people who will be dressed as maids and or butlers, depending on their preference, who will serve you food, serve you drinks, try to give you that authentic Japanese experience. we don't tend to go to these terribly often. They're usually an upcharge on the con price itself, but you are getting fed. And again, quality varies wildly. But generally speaking, if you want some people to be polite to you while wearing maid and or butler costumes, they can be fun.
Yeah.
If you're into that sort of thing. I wish I had more to say on them. Do you?
We've never really been to one, so like, they seem perfectly nice, and I know some people just go into them to get food. So
Yep.
So move on to tier 2. So this is a tier of basically stuff that, like, I imagine still probably a lot of people who've gone to cons know too, but if you've been to like maybe just only 1 or 2 cons ever, you might have missed some of this stuff. So we're starting off with just a bunch of things that start with the word con. Con crunch.
Con crunch, the art of desperately trying to get whatever you need done for the con done like 2 days before it starts. This might be trying to get your cosplay finished in time for the convention so you can wear it. This might be you are running games at a board game convention and you're desperately trying to either like finish writing character sheets or learning the rules or like badgering your friends into playing it with you a couple of times so you can make sure you know how it works. All of that stuff. That's con crunch.
Just basically running up to the con. If you're running a panel, it's getting stuff ready for the panel.
Yep.
Next we have con crud.
Con crud is what happens after the con. Keep in mind, there are a lot of people from a lot of different places coming to your con. You're going to spread a bunch of interesting diseases. And I'm not talking about even the fancy stuff. I'm just talking like colds, flus, all of that kind of jazz. Generally speaking, you might come back from the con with some kind of minor illness. Plus, generally, you are going to be running around busy for 3 days. Depending on the nature of the con, it might be a longer one. You might not be getting a lot of sleep. You might be drinking a bunch of alcohol, again, depending on the con. So you might be pretty run down in the days after it. You and I don't really get con crud anymore, and I think that's just because we go to so many cons that just running, we're so used to it that our bodies are just like, yeah, it's fine. This is just what we do.
You're tempting fate with this one, babe.
I know. With that said, we did get COVID at that one con.
Yeah. We've honestly been lucky that we've only gotten it at one con so far. Like, I suspect we'll get it again. And we do keep our vaccines updated, or at least we try to.
We try to.
Unfortunately, a certain, head
We're
of health.
Getting political. Moving on.
Well.
But yeah, generally speaking, con crud is something you run the risk of. Just be aware of it.
People shouldn't have to pay for vaccines.
Honey.
Fine.
I agree with you, but let's move on.
Con drunk / con high.
So, this is the thing where we don't know if it happens to other people or just to us. Ow. But very frequently at a con, if we've had a really good time, we'll enter a state that we refer to either as con drunk or con high. Which is basically, we haven't consumed any alcohol. We haven't consumed any other substances that would alter our brain chemistry. It's just we're running on all of the happy chemicals within our own brains. So, we're a bit giddy. We're a bit sleep deprived. We just kind of get a bit giggly.
Yep.
So, moment at one particular con where we were doing a scavenger hunt and trying to get a hold of a picture of 5 or more people dressed as Pokemon. And 3 people dressed as Squirtle walked past, and we just looked at it and went, oh, this 3 Squirtle.
That is not enough Squirtle.
And for whatever reason, that just broke us. We were giggling in a corner for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you've heard us be con drunk / con high on this podcast before.
Yeah.
A couple times. And we're just having the giddiness after a con, which is always great, generally.
Yep.
And I want to emphasize again that it's not actually any consuming of substances, at least how we label it. Con crash.
This is, again, something that happens after the con is over, where you kind of get depressed because the con is over. This usually happens after a really good con.
Recommended way to get over it is planning for another con. It's just you're apparently supposed to do that months in advance as opposed to for the next week.
Yep. Yeah, you generally get through your con crash by just planning whatever we're doing the next weekend.
Yeah.
And again, this is kind of, this is the counter argument to con high, which is just your brain has been on all those happy chemicals because you've been having so much fun, and now it's not on those happy chemicals anymore, especially if you're going to go back to work.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, after a really good event, you do sometimes experience a bit of a drop. So calling it con drop would also be appropriate. This is very normal. Like, it's just a function of the way the human brain works. Don't worry about it. Just kind of plan ahead for it.
Next, we have day 0.
So, most cons will run over weekends. Generally speaking, they will run Friday through Sunday. However, a lot of conventions will now include an additional day, which will be dubbed a day 0. And originally, Fridays for most cons were their day 0, where most of what's available on day 0 is badge pickup, and there might be 1 or 2 late night events.
Yep.
Day 0 is primarily there to ease the registration line on actual day 1. However, a lot of cons will find that their day 0 ends up getting busier and busier and having more and more stuff at it until it's functionally day 1.
Yep. Which is why now we're seeing a lot of day 0s on Thursday.
Yeah, and at that point they will frequently make their day 0 Thursday. Which again, depending on the con, like MCFC, that was a day 0 rather than a day 1, because all they really had at night, they had a couple of things, one of which was the MST3K panel, but primarily it was for the reg line.
Yeah, well, the thinking is that a lot of people, if they get hotel rooms for any cons that you travel to, will typically get them for the day before the con starts until the day it ends. So that means that you're going to be there on day 0.
Yeah.
It is more common to do that and just kind of leave Sunday as opposed to staying to Monday, although some people did.
Some people do. And again, varies depending on con. So yeah, I'm 90% sure that if Origins adds Tuesdays at day 0, then eventually it is just going to be a con that runs Monday to Sunday. They're not there yet, but give them another decade. Next.
VIP.
So, with a lot of cons, there will be tiers of badges.
You promised me you weren't going to do this.
No, I didn't.
So VIP, there are a lot of different tiers of badges, and if you get VIP tickets, you can get swag and sometimes perks depending on the con.
Yeah.
For some cons, that'll mean a quicker line for pickups. For some cons, it means a swag bag. For some cons, it means both. Sometimes it means lightning lanes to meet celebrities. We've discussed this a lot on the podcast. We don't generally find them to be worth it for big cons. The only time we'll go for them is if it's a small con we actually just want to support for the sake of having the con continue.
Yes.
So we've considered for a couple of the steampunk cons and for, I think, Catacon, because those are the ones that we would actually want to continue to support and have them grow.
Yes. Yeah, and again, generally speaking, you are paying more for a slightly better experience. For example, once again, I'm going to go back to MCFC as an example. Last weekend, if you had the sponsor tier badge, you got into the sponsors lounge, which has food and drink and that kind of stuff. Whereas if you just had the regular attendee badge, you weren't allowed in there, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with them offering different levels of experience for different money, because generally speaking, there are some people who might not want to spend that money. The week before at Sangawa, they had packages that enabled you to try a bunch of different Japanese alcohol. That didn't interest us.
Yeah.
And if we'd had that included as part of our badge price, but our badge was more expensive, that would have been annoying.
Yeah, and we appreciate that they make that an option so you can choose what level of involvement you want.
Exactly. Again, VIP badges are not a bad thing. It's just every so often you find a con that'll charge you double the price for a VIP badge and it gets you almost no perks. That sucks.
Yeah.
But largely it's about looking up what the convention is, what they're offering for their VIP badges, whether you think it's worth it.
Yeah. Next we have LineCon.
So LineCon is a phrase that gets used generally at a convention that's having trouble with lines.
Which is a lot of bigger ones.
Yeah. I know MCFC last week had some problems with their reg line because they had some technical problems, so that delayed things. I did hear somebody refer to that line as LineCon.
Yeah. LineCon just is basically anytime there is a long line that is maybe a bit unreasonable. It can happen at both big or small conventions, depending on how stuff's managed. Generally, the trick with LineCon is obviously, if there's a massive line, the staff is definitely aware of it, and they're probably doing their best that they can to fix it. Like, no one's looking at a long line and being like, huh, that's not a problem. So keep that in mind generally. It's fine to complain about it and recommend solutions, but don't, like, yell at people about it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure GalaxyCon looks at massive lines and is like, sweet marketing opportunity.
Yeah, but besides them. We'll talk about that later, maybe.
Maybe.
Next, we have cat adoptions.
Yeah, so this is increasingly becoming a thing at some small to medium cons, and they will sometimes invite a animal shelter, frequently cats for whatever reason, to come have a space at the convention. And if you meet a cat that you happen to like, you can potentially go to the animal shelter and maybe adopt it. I still don't know how this started happening, but it's clearly a big enough thing that GalaxyCon noticed and was like, this is a thing we should do because it's a thing that happens at cons. Because they also were trying it this year. Which again, like, having cats at cons is cute. You know, provided they are, like... I do think it's something that only really works at a small to medium con.
Yeah.
Because at a big con, you start running into issues of, you know, thousands of people all trying to see cats at the same time, and that's just overwhelming for the poor cats.
Generally, most cat adoption agencies are pretty good about, like, keeping them in back areas and switching them out and stuff like that, generally. Yeah. Next, we have ticketing systems. So, ticketing systems that I have to vamp for because someone's yawning again are systems used typically at tabletop conventions in order to get tickets or distribute tickets to events that have limited numbers of spots, most commonly like RPG games or board games.
Yes.
And different cons have different ones. Tabletop is the most common one, I think, in our area.
Yep.
But I know Gen Con has their own ticketing system.
Yes.
And basically, these are a way of distributing tickets to events, so you know 100% that if you have a ticket and you show up for that table, you're allowed at that event.
Yeah. Because at a con where you're just going to a panel on, like, I don't know, basics of cosplay, that's going to be a panel that'll be at a lot of cons. They will have a number of seats in the room. You don't need a ticket for that. You just go, you grab a seat. That's fine. Whereas with TTRPG or with board game cons, if somebody's running a board game, or a tabletop RPG or something like that, they have very limited seating at their event. So board game cons use those ticketing systems specifically so you can guarantee like, it lets you build a schedule of what games you're going to at what time. It lets you know where you need to be, and it also means that you know that you're going to be doing that particular game, so you don't have to rush to a table like an hour early to save a seat, which is good. Because again, if you certainly at an event like Origins, which is very, very busy, has a lot of different events, and frequent, if there are a lot of people who want to play a particular game, then they need to know in advance whether or not they're going to be able to or not. Because if you turn up at a board game con and there's no seats available because they didn't use a ticketing system and like 6 people beat you there, that's going to be a sucky feeling. And then you have to figure out what the heck you're going to do for the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
So ticketing systems are a, generally speaking, good thing. It's mostly just that, depending on the size of the con, there's usually a bit of a scrum when the tickets go on sale.
Yep.
Because there are very, very few of them.
Yep, and it gets kind of chaotic.
Yep.
Room parties.
So generally speaking, most conventions will have a hotel attached. Some are just hosted at hotels. Some are hosted at convention centers that have hotels attached to them. But generally speaking, because they know people are going to need to stay overnight, they will frequently try and get a block of rooms at a nearby hotel, whether it's connected or not. And you buy your, if you buy your hotel through them, it's usually a little bit cheaper because they basically, they guarantee to the hotel that they're going to sell X number of rooms in exchange for a discount on those rooms. Pretty standard stuff. Which means, generally speaking, people have a space at the con or near the con where, if you want to have a party, they can host.
Yep.
So different cons have different levels of room party. Again, based on the size of the hotel, based on all of that kind of jazz, and based on the vibe of the con.
Yeah, and I will say that I was looking for Lemoore, which might be a con we go to a little bit later this year. And they, I know, have a specific block of rooms called the Noisy Block, where they're specifically putting a bunch of rooms together for people to host parties so that they can be separate from the quieter rooms of the hotel with people who want to sleep, which I think is a cool idea.
That's actually a really good idea. Like, that wouldn't work at some cons. Like Colossal Con is such a mad scramble dash to get a room that people are just grateful for whatever the heck they get.
Yeah.
And anybody who gets one of the end rooms that are a bit bigger.
Yeah, I think it's just expected you host a party if you get one of the big rooms.
Yep. You know, but we've also been to like smaller sci-fi cons that do room party stuff.
Yep. And generally the quote-unquote room party signature is if the door is slightly ajar past a certain hour of the night, that means that there's a room party going on. Some will decorate their doors, which I appreciate.
Yep.
But if a door is slightly ajar, you can knock and ask if there's a party in there. The thing with room parties, though, is they are very kind of sink or swim. Once you go in, it's kind of you have to stay there for at least an hour to be polite. And yeah.
Yep. We've heard stories.
We've heard stories.
We're not going to talk about those stories.
Yeah, I will say this, and I'll probably mention it again. We get to the thing. There's one here that's just called con drama. We're only talking about stuff that happens at cons that we went to. So if you're expecting stories about like ball pits or certain potential pizzas that got kind of gross, those are not things we're going to talk about because we weren't at those things.
Yeah.
There's one bullet point called con drama that we'll talk about, but we're not going to talk about each of those things because those weren't things that we experienced. Just as a way to keep it like fair.
Makes sense to me.
Well, in fairness, one of these I guess we haven't experienced directly, which is tattoos, but we've seen those, so that counts.
Is that the next thing?
Yes.
Okay. Tattoos. For whatever reason, it's become a really popular thing at conventions for local tattoo artists to set up, a section, and you can just get a tattoo right there at the con.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be like a big, massive whole sleeve or anything like that. It's going to be a relatively smaller thing because they've only got so much time. But yeah, if you want a tattoo to memorialize, to remember your time at the con, you can do that.
Yep. This terrifies you.
Yeah, this terrifies me. Again, I don't have any tattoos. I don't object to tattoos. It's not. I've yet to find anything that I like enough that I want it permanently affixed to my body. And again, like, this is not a knock against people who like tattoos, but it's interesting that I've spoken to several people who do have a fair number of tattoos in my comments. It feels like the first one is like this deep spiritual moment where you spend like months working out what you want, where it's going to be, and finding the right artist and all of that jazz. And by the time you're on your fourth or fifth tattoo, you're like, heck, why not? Let's get one at a con.
Yeah. So, yeah, if it's your thing, do it. I wouldn't recommend it for your first tattoo experience, but I've never tried it. So.
Yep.
Drag shows.
So drag shows are exactly what you think they are. Drag is an increasingly popular form of artistic expression, and a lot of cons will frequently include drag as part of their entertainment. And that's fine. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again, drag doesn't do much for me as an art form, but I kind of look at it the same way I look at ballet. Like, I can respect the skill, I can respect the artistry, I can respect like all the work that goes into it, while also acknowledging that it's just not for me. Like, I've been to see ballet performed, and it's fine. I can respect everybody involved in it. I don't get that much out of it as an artistic medium, and that's fine. Like, not every art form is for every person.
I will also just say personally, I think I do prefer pay models where I just know like how much I'm paying going in as opposed to tipping people. Like, I'm just more comfortable with that as like a model. Like, if you're charging me like a straight $20 for a drag show, for me that is more comfortable than like giving $20 in tips.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of a me thing about tips generally.
Yeah.
So
and again, tips are always optional.
They are always optional, and I've never felt bullied for them. But it is something for which I do want to recognize that it's a performance, and I would prefer to just pay a flat rate for that performance rather than like giving people dollar bills.
Yeah, that's fair. Next.
Next, we have cosplay repair station or room.
So
a cosplay repair room.
Generally speaking, at most cons, you will be, if there are cosplayers, there is going to be damage to cosplays. This can be as simple as like something gets knocked onto them and they get a bit stained. This could be a prop breaks or a seam pops or something like that. Like, there's a lot of ways for a cosplay to go wrong. And if that happens, you might need to repair it. So a lot of conventions, especially the ones above a certain size, will have a cosplay repair space what it looks like is going to vary wildly.
Mhm.
Like at some cons, you're basically just looking at a small, table that has like basic sewing equipment and some hot glue on it. Where or you've got something like Techos, which is an entire fairly sized room with a bunch of people who are there to help. It has sewing machines. It has needle.
It has a back area where you can get changed, which most don't have these days.
Like Techos cosplay repair space we've never seen anything to rival it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But like generally speaking, cosplay repair is there for the emergency fixes. Like, is it going to be neat? Is it going to be perfect? No. Is it going to get you through the weekend? Yes, that's the goal. With that said, some of them are, say they have a cosplay repair space and it's not actually that impressive or good.
Yeah, it's just a sewing machine that's not even set up a lot of the time. Or it's just like a station.
Yeah.
Next we have early registration / early badge pickup. So these are two separate things. I kind of combine them. Early registration is basically this idea that if you register early, you can get a discount, which is useful, but it does mean, because most of these don't have refunds, we might talk about that a little bit later, that you're kind of locked into it at that point, even if stuff happens.
Yeah.
But you can get, some cons offer as much as 50% off if you register like at the last con.
Yeah, like GalaxyCon will pretty immediately start encouraging you to, like pre-reg for next year. We don't do that because, frankly, we don't know what conventions we're going to be going to, a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that we're pretty sure we're going to do again.
Yeah, but it is kind of a risk-benefit analysis for us, particularly, especially with your visa situation. We just try to be careful about not planning too far out, because we would save money, but we are risking losing that money if we just don't wind up going. So,
not to mention the fact that some conventions do not know what their dates are until closer to.
Yeah.
So if you buy your badge a year in advance for GalaxyCon, they've probably got their date locked in. But if something better, more interesting that you want to do that weekend comes up in the meantime, what do?
Yeah. Or
because generally speaking, those badges are not transferable.
No, they're generally not. Sometimes, I know some places will roll your registration into next year if you can wind up not being able to attend. A lot of the FurCons do that. So you couldn't attend in 2026, you could go in 2027 instead. And you could keep doing that indefinitely, I suppose. There's no rule to stop you. Whereas early badge pickup is, particularly for bigger cons, sometimes they'll allow an extra day where there's nothing going on where you can pick up your badge. Sometimes it's not even at the convention center.
Yeah, one or two we've seen where they'll do deals with local businesses where you can go to that local business and pick up your badge early.
Like Dave & Buster's for GalaxyCon for whatever reason.
Yeah, that was weird, but it was effective.
I mean, we've done it before. It's actually nice.
Yep. Because it means you don't have to stand in a line. You can just go to whatever place it is early and just be all prepped, ready to go, which is kind of nice in its own way.
Next, we have tape lines.
So, generally speaking, at a convention, there is going to need to be line management for big events. And how the line is managed varies wildly, but a lot of the bigger cons don't want to spend money on actual rope poles or anything like that. So they'll just stick masking tape on the floor in a grid pattern.
It's not remotely measured to people's bodies at all.
No, especially given that people are frequently in cosplay.
Yep.
Cosplay is frequently bigger than the human body.
And I will say these cons also don't have anything for people in wheelchairs either, who will definitely not fit in those lines, and they have no accessible stuff.
Yep. That's a problem. Again, we'll talk about accessibility at cons. I feel like that's later.
There's a bunch of stuff on that later.
Yep.
And then finally for this tier we have fursuits.
So, even if you are not at a FurCon specifically...
You promised you were going to stop doing this.
Honey, I can't prevent myself yawning.
Yeah, but you do it every time I bring up a new one. It's
not every time.
It's been the last 4 consistently.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
But yeah.
So fursuits you are probably going to see at most cons.
Yes. Now, important things to note about fursuits. If you've never encountered a furry before, they are amazing, wonderful, beautiful people who can't see a damn thing when they're wearing their full suit. Vision inside a fursuit is not great. Sound inside a fursuit, Slightly better, but still not great.
Mm-hmm.
So just, if you see a furry coming down the corridor towards you, be very, very careful. Because for one thing, what they are wearing is not really a costume. What they are wearing is wearable art.
Yep. And it does seem a little weird when you first see it, but keep in mind that, like, cons are about being weird. Like, it's not any different than a costume. It's how they feel most comfortable and let them have fun.
Yeah.
So we're finally on to Tier 3.
Yay.
Tier 3.
Tier 3.
There are 9 tiers.
Oh, God.
You already know that.
Yeah, I know. Keep going.
They do get it, like, slightly shorter. Slightly.
Slightly.
Tier 3, shout out to Lynn's, is the ribbon game.
So the ribbon game is something that a decent number of cons, but not all cons do. Ribbons at conventions actually started with professional conventions.
Mm-hmm.
The idea basically being it's an extra something to add to your badge that gives like additional information about you. So it might say like presenter or panelist or something like that.
Yeah, I got them at most of the APAs, which is the American Philosophical Association, or the Applied Ethics Association both have these. So most cons now will have ones for pronouns, which is awesome.
Which is excellent.
A lot will also just have like different things that you can put on your badge that tell people who you are some of the time.
But ribbons generally have become a really popular thing to collect
Mm-hmm.
because like having a whole string of them hanging from your badge is just kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And people will make their own. They're not that expensive. We have our own ribbons for the podcast. They just have Con Couple Podcast written on them in rainbow lettering, because of course. And generally speaking, there are some cons that will actively do the ribbon game,
Mm-hmm.
where the objective is to acquire as many different ones as you can.
Uh-huh. Like how official this is varies a lot between cons. Sometimes it's something the con doesn't put on. Sometimes that it's something that other people do. And how you acquire the ribbons varies a lot. For some people, you'll just trade them with others, so they'll give you your ribbon and you'll give them their ribbon.
Yep.
For some of them, they'll be a scavenger hunt type thing that you have to do. Like Colossal Con, I know, does a ton of this, where you have to like find certain things, and then at the end you get a ribbon and stuff like that.
Yep.
And there's a lot in between.
Yep. There's also plenty of like, hey, you participated in my panel, grab a ribbon.
Yep.
Kind of stuff. All of this is good. All of this is fun, and like the ribbon game isn't terribly complicated.
It's not complicated. My main issue with it generally, although I would like to play more, is just because of how like spread out it is and how kind of grassroots it is in most conventions. It's kind of just hard to follow and find.
Yeah.
Because most cons don't have like a list of vendors. They don't have who's participating, and you kind of have to do all that on your own. So there's not like a sheet that you can refer back to.
Yes.
Which makes it a little bit more difficult to do than other stuff.
Yes.
Because scavenger hunts, which we might talk about later, they have all the things listed that you need, whereas with ribbon games you have to kind of go around and find what stuff you need to begin with.
Yes. And again, sometimes if you're at a con that's really big into it, looking at you, Colossal, and people find out that you have ribbons, they may just come up to you and be like, hey, I heard you have ribbons.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. We've thought about making people's, because we do have Con Couple ribbons that we've probably given you if you've listened to this podcast. If you've not, we will definitely, like, just say you've listened to us and we will give you one.
Yep.
We thought about making our ribbons like a goal where you have to like listen to our podcast. Or I thought about for a while making a secret ribbon where I just give out a code word at the end of the podcast and people tell me it, then we'll do, which I might do starting in Colossal, especially now that I know that Lynn's is into them, because I think they would enjoy that.
Yep.
So I might do that for them.
Yep.
Next we have Con Suite.
Which one's like? Oh, yeah. So sometimes a convention will have a quote-unquote con suite. This is generally just a room which has limited food and beverages available for the attendees. Generally speaking, this is a thing that only really happens at small cons.
Mm-hmm.
Because doing that for like the 20,000 people who go to Origins, not really practical or achievable.
And con suites do vary. Like some of them are for just standard attendees. Some of them are for volunteers.
Yes.
Some of them are for both. And some might have separate rooms rather.
Yeah.
I do hope if any con is running on volunteers, those volunteers are getting free food and beverage and a place to chill.
Generally speaking, they are getting at least free food.
Yes. Although obviously we can't, because we don't typically volunteer at conventions, we can't say which conventions have con suites for volunteers. We just know the ones that have them for attendees.
Yes.
Which some smaller cons do. I do think there was something that used to be more common and now have kind of become a little bit less common.
At least in part, the issue is just hotels have been increasingly clamping down on people bringing outside food and beverages.
Yeah, which is a bit silly because you could just go up to your room and get free food and beverage anyway, but whatever.
Yep.
Next on tier 3, we have bring cash.
Yes, so as I said earlier, if you want to have a budget for the vendors hall, bring cash. If the con is a con that's raising a bunch of money for charity and you want to do a lot of weird charity panels that are going to be trying to raise money, bring cash.
Mm-hmm.
Cash is super useful to conventions for various reasons like that. No, and again, like bring like medium-sized denominations. Like you can turn up with 450s to have a budget of $200 over the weekend, but like it's kind of hard to spend that in a bunch of different places.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you turn up with a whole bunch of 10s, same amount of money,
yep,
much more easier to much easier to do stuff with over the course of the weekend. And again, especially if you are going to a fur con, they are going to be raising money for an animal charity,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of their panels run off donations. Having like $10 available that you can throw in the hat, super useful and handy. Like I accidentally did that at one panel where I established what the going rate was. I got simultaneously thanked and
food.
Yeah,
basically.
Again, it was, thank you for getting that started. Also, for getting that started.
Mm-hmm. Next, we have con disasters, and this is one bullet point. We're not going to talk about specific things that happen at disasters cons we weren't at. We might bring up some stuff that did happen at cons that we are at on later tiers, but nothing that is that. So disaster cons generally tend to be infamous cons on the internet for being bad.
Yep.
An issue with them that I will admit I'm kind of having in modern time periods is a lot of times the modern day events are now being reviewed by people who weren't even at them. To tell about them.
Yep.
Which has happened quite a bit. And part of the issue with that is that I have no doubt that there are going to be disasters cons that have happened and will happen, DashCon being the most infamous one. But typically the stories that are told about those cons aren't actually being told by people who are there, which means even if they were very sucky events, you're not actually getting firsthand accounts.
Yeah.
Which is why we, I think, try to be very careful about reporting on them generally.
Exactly. Like, don't get me wrong. If something goes horribly, horribly wrong at a convention we're at, we're going to tell you about it.
We will tell you about it, but that's because we've firsthand experienced it or have talked to somebody who's experienced it directly.
Yeah.
Yep. Whereas, like, influencers online who just found a bunch of TikToks about stuff going wrong are kind of only getting half the story, and that's not really fair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't doubt that whatever the Book Talk Con was last summer was aggressively horrible, but at the same time,
most of the people making content about it weren't there.
Well, that's why I think our favorite video on DashCon is, I will shout this person out because I like their work, Strange Eons did stuff where she actually interviewed people who went to DashCon.
Yep.
And after seeing that video, I think both of us were like, we actually probably wouldn't have minded DashCon all that much.
Would it have been the best con we went to?
No.
Would it have been fine? Yeah.
Probably.
Now, that's at least in part because we did not give a, did not care about Welcome to Night Vale.
Which I still think that situation is more ethically complex than people live on.
Yeah.
But also, that's not what this is about because we weren't there.
That's not what this is about because we weren't there. But yeah, like, generally speaking, things at cons are going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are being run by people and people are fallible. Now, how wrong they go and what they do to make sure that doesn't happen again, that's the interesting question.
Yeah, and that's why in this podcast we try to be very compliment sandwichy about a lot of stuff, is because we know people at cons are trying, and I'm aware we would get more views if we weren't compliment sandwichy, but we're con positive.
We are con positive.
Like, we have no problems getting some shit at the corporate cons, but, and yes, I know I just cursed, but whatever, we're not in the first section anyway. Next we have Facebook complaining.
So,
/ social media complaining generally.
Social media complaining generally. So most cons will have a social media presence of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
This can range from official channels to unofficial channels to Discord servers to Facebook pages.
And keep in mind, like, what we do doesn't have a high barrier for entry, and we obviously talk about stuff in detail, but TikTok doesn't. Yep. So they will just complain there too.
Yep. Like, again, the con we were at last weekend, we mentioned in that episode that there was the volleyball team. Yeah, so it turns out that volleyball team was posting TikToks about it the entire weekend, most of which were pretty offensive.
Some of them were cute. Some of them were them just dancing with the furries, which, that was cute.
Some of them were problematic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, And then there's stuff like the Origins Facebook page, which we refer to as the Old Man Yells at Cloud Facebook page,
Yeah.
because half of it is people complaining about stuff that annoys them personally that nobody else cares
Yeah, I
about.
will say Origins and Techo tend to be the worst two offenders.
Yeah. For whatever reason. I think it's just because people genuinely love those cons and care.
Yeah, which is fair. But I also believe that staff for both of those conventions is doing the best that they possibly can.
Yeah.
So some complaints can be legitimate, but keep in mind that things are run by humans. Ghosting.
Ghosting a con. So, ghosting online basically means not turning up, even though you said you would. Ghosting for a con is the opposite. Ghosting a con is turning up and attending the con without paying for a badge.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dick move.
Yep.
With that said, depending on the con and its location, like if you just want to walk the halls and see some cool cosplay, but not go into the vendors hall, not go to panels, not do any of that stuff, I don't actually have a problem with people ghosting cons.
Well, this is something where I think if you're not sure if you want to attend a con or something like that, like I've seen these a lot with furry cons generally, because you see a bunch of people in fur costumes, people are automatically interested, and the furries actually are very welcoming of new people in the community. So I've recommended a ton to people just because I think I mentioned this before. As somebody who's in a costume but not in a fursuit, I tend to get a lot of people asking what the event is about because I'm clearly at it, but I'm also less scary to talk to.
Yeah, that's happened a few times.
Yeah. So generally what I recommend is they honestly just hang out at the hotel bar and talk to some people. And that's technically ghosting in a way, but you're not going into any of the paid for con events that the con is pointing on. You're just hanging out.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to do at a con, I think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Where it crosses the line is when you're doing con sponsored activities.
Yeah. So if you have not bought a badge, but you're going into a panel, that's a dick move.
And keep in mind, as somebody with accessibility issues, I really hate it when you have somebody checking badges at the front of panel rooms because it bogs the line down.
Yep.
So you doing that means that there's going to be more security theater. And
Yep.
a phrase I love is that people hate people who exist in such a way that they require society to have rules.
Yep.
So if you're somebody who's requiring us to have more rules, stop being that person.
Yep.
But Ann, if you want to go to a con just to hang out and hang out in the hallways, generally most cons are going to be fine with that.
Yeah, because a lot of cons are in convention centers, which are generally speaking public spaces.
And I think a lot of cons do know that if you go the first year and you ghost the con and just hang out with people, that might mean that you'll buy a badge next year.
Yep.
Because it's a good way to kind of see if that con is for you just by vibes.
Yep. Or you might go on one day, really enjoy just kind of vibing with it, and then actually buy a badge the next day.
Yep.
That happens sometimes.
Next, we've got conposals. Classic conposal.
So some people like to propose marriage at conventions.
We've seen a lot of this.
Yeah. Again, varies by con. Techo had 3 different proposals at it this year, all of which were adorable. Starbase Indie had a proposal that was part of opening ceremonies and was planned.
Mm-hmm.
That was adorable. Starbase Indie also had a wedding this year because it was 2 people who met at that convention.
Yeah, we saw one at Missouri that was, I think, 2 people of the dance troupe were getting married. That was super cute.
Yep. So, yeah, sometimes you will see people proposing marriage at a con.
Yeah.
Frequently, it's because they met at that con in the past year.
Yeah.
Not always, but frequently. And it's adorable. Leave them to their thing.
Yeah. I will say this, if you want to take a picture of them, if you happen to have a good shot, and then immediately ask them if they want the picture afterwards, that's okay.
Yes, we've seen people do that.
Yeah, and obviously if they're doing it in a public way where it's part of a panel or something, you can cheer and stuff like that. And if you're thinking about doing a conposal, marriage is a conversation. The way that I've heard it phrased in the modern day, generally, it's recommended that marriage is a conversation. The proposal itself is a surprise. So, and also, if you want a tip, if you are the person who's proposing to somebody else, great thing to do is tell the person's friends what you want to do and have the friends kind of casually bring it up in conversation with them to see how they'll react to it. It's an old trick, but it works well. What?
I was not familiar with that one.
Oh, yeah. I've done it for friends before where somebody's partner has told me that they want to propose in a certain way, but they're not sure if they'll like it. So then we have a conversation about it in front of them to see how they react to it, and then we report back.
Fair.
And then they don't catch on then generally, but they catch on after, and it's fun. So
Yeah, where it's like, wait, when you guys were talking about that earlier, was that because of this? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Next.
Headless lounge.
So this is a unique thing for fur cons. Fursuits are frequently heavy and frequently hot, which means that it is not at all uncommon for a fur con to have what is known as a headless lounge. This is a specific space for people in fursuits and their handlers to be able to get out of the the costume, whether that's entirely or just removing the head, have a water break, a chance to cool off. Like they frequently have like high-powered fans going in there, and generally speaking, these spaces are. We have never been in a headless lounge because we're not allowed to, because they are for fursuiters and their handlers only, and that's fine. Because the thing you have to keep in mind, especially about fursuiters, is that what they are wearing is part of their identity, and some of them are not comfortable being seen without the heads on.
Yep.
Especially if it's a family-friendly fur con, like, to those kids, those people are real, and taking the head off in front of them ruins the magic. It's the same reason that if your kid's at Disneyland and Mickey Mouse took his head off, you would, that would ruin the magic for them.
Yeah, and I will say some fursuiters really don't care about their head being on or off. Others really, really care about it, so it's great to have options.
Yeah.
Relatedly, the next thing on the list is the cosplay lounge, which seems to be going by the wayside very, very quickly. I think just because conventions have decided they don't want to dedicate a room to this anymore.
Yeah, which is a shame. So, cosplay lounge, same basic principle, just a space where cosplayers who need to can go in, sit down, have a glass of water. Some of them used to include space to get changed in.
Yep.
That's definitely gone by the wayside at this point.
Which I do get, that you don't want people naked in front of each other, or creeps or anything like that, but having changed them a bunch because of bowl gowns before, I've never experienced any of that. It's pretty nice.
Because again, I freely admit something I really wish we would steal from the Japanese conventions. The thing you have to keep in mind about Japan is, generally speaking, you're getting everywhere by public transport.
Yep.
And Japanese public transport doesn't allow cosplay. There are some cosplays you could probably get away with, if you're going as, I don't know, Taya from Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, who's in what amounts to a Japanese school costume. That you could probably wear on a train without too many problems.
Yeah.
But big, bulky armored cosplay, that is banned on Japanese trains.
Yeah.
Which means that almost all Japanese conventions include changing space.
Yeah, well, I think there's just an expectation now, probably because it helps the con, that you're just going to get a hotel room. Even though, for some people, like me, hotel rooms just aren't accessible.
Yep.
I can't stay in most of that.
And there are some conventions that just don't have an on-site hotel.
Yeah.
So having somewhere to actually get changed into and out of a costume would be super useful. Really wish more cons did it.
Yeah. Next, we have the con store.
So the con store specifically sells merch related to the con. I don't know how much more there is to say. Again, what merch there is varies wildly. Frequently, it's t-shirts and hoodies and that kind of stuff. Some cons will have con-specific plush. Origins usually has plush of their mascot Crit, who's a kobold.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the next thing on the list is con mascots.
Yep. So some conventions will have a mascot. OhioCon, for example, has Nurse Lindsay.
Yep. Origins has Crit.
Yep, Origins has Crit. Unlike sports mascots, generally speaking, they're not going to pay somebody to dress up as their con mascot.
Although occasionally, especially at the bigger cons, you will get people cosplaying as the mascot just for fun. But they're not typically, the con's not paying them to do that. They just decided to do that.
Yes. Which again, cosplay con mascots are generally cute. They're mostly just there for marketing purposes, and that's fine.
Next, we have con themes.
So some cons will have a theme, and this is beyond the this is an anime con. I'm talking they will specifically have a theme for their con. So last year's MCFC, they were Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy theme. So The program guide had "Don't Panic" printed in large,
Yep.
friendly letters on the cover. This year their theme was
Video games effectively. Press pause to start, I think was
press
technically
pause to start. I was trying to remember what it
Yeah,
officially
furry
was.
themes or furry cons tend to have more theming than other cons, but
Yes.
other cons do. Like I think CosmiCon has mild theming and
Yeah.
some other stuff.
And
Speaking
again,
of, oh, sorry, brief aside, Furthermore's like because I was thinking about this one for this year, so I've been looking at it a bit this week. Their theme is Homecoming. I don't know what that means as a theme.
that is kind of broad, and as opposed to the upcoming Anthro Ohio, which is "Rock Me Like a Furricane."
No, that's rock, which is nice. Anthro Con is doing cryptids, which I will be. I'm just like that theme feels kind of tired at this point. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's just because we've already seen like 3 furry cons do cryptids in the past few years. But
Again, to each their own.
To each their own. Con themes aren't really that important. Also, like they're kind of more of just kind of a cute thing that you can do during the con, or kind of gives you a bit of extra con camaraderie.
Yep. Or like it'll be a fun thing. Like apparently at last year's MCFC when their theme was Hitchhiker's Guide, whoever got badge number 42 got a free upgrade.
Yep.
Because 42. That's just funny.
Yep.
Or IFC last year was Roll Fur Initiative.
Yep.
Which was D&D themed. So the movie that they played at MST3K was the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Mm-hmm.
The first one. Bad one. But yeah. So it's generally worth noting that the con theme will probably not be the most important thing about the con. It'll just like add a bit of spice and flavor.
Yeah.
Rather than, anything major.
Especially if the theme is BDSM.
That's definitely adding spice.
Yeah.
What? Which con have we been to that would have that as a theme?
Probably one of the furry ones.
Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway.
I was thinking Sangawa, but anyway.
But it was a segue, because the next theme we're talking about is party cons.
Oh. I was wondering what the heck the segue on that one was. So, party cons are a specific type of con. No con is going to officially declare itself a party con, but there are some that you just know. Colossal Con, that's a party con. And generally speaking at party cons, there's a lot of focus on late night events. There is frequently alcohol available, and generally speaking, the vibe is less on the focus of the con itself and more just getting a whole bunch of people who are vaguely into the same stuff together to have fun. And that's fine. Like, Colossal Con, part of the reason it is such a good party con is it's held at a water park.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's held at the Kalahari, and it's fun to be in costume in a water park with a bunch of friends, many of whom have been drinking, just vibing, having fun. Like that's just a good time, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So party cons generally are a lot of fun. They're not something I would want to do every week.
Yep.
But they can be a lot of fun. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sounds like a party con.
Oh, generally speaking, party cons are going to be loud.
Yep.
If you're staying on site, be warned.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would generally want to stay on site at a party con. No. Like, not that we even get a choice, because the major party con we go to is Colossal Con, and like, there's no way we're getting rooms even if we want rooms to that thing.
Yeah, those suckers sell out in like minutes.
Yep.
If you're lucky.
Next, we have profit versus non-profit cons.
So an awful lot of conventions are 501c3s, which basically means they are doing something for a charity. They are non-profit events, specifically just they're there for everybody to have a good time without necessarily making money.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas GalaxyCon, Fan Expo, a couple of other big ones, they are there explicitly to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And both, I think, have their place. Like, I know there's a lot of hate for corporate cons, and I get why, but corporate cons can afford to do things that non-corporate cons can't. Like, if you want to meet a famous celebrity, they're probably not going to come to a non-corporate con because a small charity-run convention probably can't afford their rates.
There have been some instances with non-for-profit cons in the past, like effectively not paying celebrities or treating them well because it is run by volunteers. Sometimes it was their first time running events. So I know some celebrities don't work with non-profit cons basically at all, which is annoying, but
it is. Like, I get it, I understand the logic, but it is, you know,
Like
it
I
is
know
sad.
some celebrities weren't like reimbursed for things like hotel rooms at nonprofit cons, and as we I think are seeing, there are definitely some celebrities that can just afford to go where they want, but a lot of the celebrities you see at cons aren't like
They're working.
yeah, they're not billionaires. Voice actors don't make that much.
Nope. To quote the excellent interview with blanking on his name, the actor who played Abed on Community, when like Larry Fowler was asking him, not Larry Fowler, Larry David, no, who's the Larry?
Larry King.
Larry King, thank you. When Larry King was talking to him, and he was like, talking about luxuries, and he was like, yeah, a really good cup of coffee. And I was like, well, that's not a luxury. Well, what is a luxury? I don't know, private jet, caviar. And he just leads to go, Larry, I'm on DuckTales. Because, like, he does not, he makes enough money to live, but he's not a super rich celebrity. And that's true for the vast majority of the people who you're going to see at cons. They're generally working professionals.
Yeah. Profit cons also, and I've been hearing more and more about this, I think it's fair to also say, is because they're focused on maximizing profit, they don't care as much about the guest experience as non-profit cons. Like, I wanted to once believe that they did, but it's become apparent in the past year that they really just don't.
Yep. Once you are through the door and they have your money, they stop kind of caring if you're actually having a good time.
Yep.
They are focused pretty much exclusively on things that get you in the front door. So, big celebrity draw names, like a massive list of events they can list as going on, whether or not those events are actually good or not. Like, as we've said, GalaxyCon's model increasingly is the if we do it, they will come model, where it's just like they do certain kinds of panels just because they know that cons do that and that attracts people, not because they actually have anybody who wants to run that kind of panel. Look at their dating game panel. Like, they very clearly don't understand that dating game at a con is a joke. Like, it's a chance to play in character and have fun, not any. Like, nobody who does a dating game panel at a con actually expects to wind up dating the person. Like, we all know it's in fun.
Yes.
It's play. Whereas GalaxyCon seemed to be actually under the impression that they were hooking people up. It was weird. But anyway.
Finally, for this year, we've got the Con Discord.
So, cons generally have a bunch of different methods of getting information out, but a lot of conventions now will have a Discord server for themselves.
Yeah.
That's primary goal is to, put out information.
Yeah. Which I don't mind, but at the same time, it's just like, with the amount of, I don't want to be in 40 Discord servers. I just don't have time to keep up with that.
Yep.
Like, please put announcements and stuff on your website as opposed to social media. Like, I go to your website. Maybe I'm old, but I go to your website.
There are some conventions I don't mind being in the server for, like I'm in the Acadicon server.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be in the Acadicon server.
Well, the Acadicon server also talks about other cons and stuff like that. So, but it does vary depending on server, and I am in a lot of them, I will say.
Yeah.
So, okay, you ready for Tier 4?
Tier 4.
The in-character panel.
So this is a thing that's, I think, slowly going away. For a while, there was a very big thing of having a cosplayer dressed as a character, or a group of cosplayers dressed as characters from the same thing, do a panel where they just answer audience questions in character. This is much, much less of a thing than it used to be, at least in part, I think, because people decided they weren't actually that good panels.
Well, I think part of it's also anime because it's becoming more and more of a pulp genre. Like, I think when AnimeCon started, there were probably one or two anime that just everyone had seen.
Yep.
That's not really the case anymore.
Yeah, your Pokemons, your Yu-Gi-Ohs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas now, there is so much anime coming out that, unless it really hits the big time, the odds of everybody at the con having seen a given anime are actually very, very low.
Yeah.
The average con you go to now, everybody's probably seen at least some Pokemon. Whereas, while most of the attendees have probably heard of Spy Family, probably maybe a third of them have actually watched it.
Yeah. So they also tend to be very, mostly friends joking around on stage, which I think is the other issue with them, so they don't tend to be as common anymore.
Yeah.
Next, we've got the quiet room.
So a lot of cons will include a quiet room, the purpose of which is basically cons can be overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of people. like even if you are not somebody who has like ADHD or PTSD or any of those conditions, then you might just need a place to go and cool off for 10 minutes and just like sit, not talk to anybody, just relax, recharge your social batteries before you go back out again. And that's what the quiet room is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at some cons, the quiet room kind of devolves into just a place where people are talking.
Yep.
But most cons generally try not to let that happen because the quiet room is an important space for those who need it.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I heard a convention recently who decided to like improve their quiet room based on stuff we said, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
Thank you.
I wish I could follow it up with a better point, but this is what is next on the list.
Oh, God.
Furry Nazis.
Okay. Look, every community has its bad eggs.
Uh-huh.
The furry community had a bit of a Nazi problem there for a while.
Yeah.
They were known as the Third Reich. I'm annoyed at how good a pun that is.
Yeah, I don't know if they came up with that, to be fair, if other people started calling them that.
Who knows? Either way, the furry community generally has done a very, very good job of kicking those people to the curb.
Yes, one was accidentally in the Anthrocon fursuit parade despite being banned, which I don't honestly think was Anthrocon's fault, because that person clearly didn't buy their own badge and got a badge from somebody else who gave it to them.
Yeah.
Which there's only so much they can stop that from happening.
Yep.
Like, the real problem was the fact that somebody gave them a badge that they weren't entitled to.
Yes. And again, it's worth noting that the furry community as a whole is extremely caring and welcoming and loving and all of that jazz. It's just every community has its share of terrible people in it.
Yeah.
There is no shortage of anime fans who are terrible people. Yeah. There is no shortage of sci-fi fans who are terrible people.
I think it's mostly just noteworthy because of how like inclusive the furry community is that they would bizarrely have this as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how much they are not that otherwise.
Yeah, like they are an incredibly welcoming community.
And also there's been a very, very big push post-pandemic to solve this problem, and I think for the most part they have.
Yes, which is good.
Yeah. Wild Bills.
Okay, so I now have more to say on Wild Bills than I did the last time we recorded this. So Wild Bills is a company that turns up at a reasonable number of cons. It's not at every con, but it's at a decent number. That does like quality craft sodas. And they have an interesting business model whereby you buy a Wild Bills mug at a convention, and you can refill that mug as many times as you like. And then if you go to a future convention that they're at, you pay a fee, and then you can, once again, refill your mug as many times as you like. Now, when I bought my Wild Bills mug, I was under the impression, I bought it, and then throughout the entire weekend, I refilled it a bunch of different times. I was under the impression that the fee you paid at future cons was for the weekend. So you paid like $10 and you could get as much soda as you wanted throughout the weekend.
Which did make sense because when you buy it the first time, you're allowed to refill it as many times as you want that weekend.
Yeah, and the mug itself was like $35. Mm-hmm. I found out at OhioCon this year that no, the fee you pay is daily.
Mm-hmm.
So you pay $10 a day to get functionally infinite soda. And don't get me wrong, their soda is good quality. But at the same time, who the hell is drinking $10 a day worth of soda?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I do not feel like it is worth it for that daily price. Now,
Plus, keep in mind that because they're typically located in the vendor's hall, you can only really refill it during vendor's hall hours, which is not, like, most vendor's halls close anywhere between, like, 5 and 8, depending on what con you're at.
Yep.
And you're generally at paneling program until later than that.
Yep. Which is what happened at OhioCon. I wanted to fill it up, and the vendor's hall had closed, and guess I'm not getting any more today.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, if they had a rate that was, like, $15 for the con or $10 for the day, that I would be okay with, because like if you're only there for one day, you want to pay a little bit less. Whereas if you are there for the whole con and you can just pay for the whole con in advance, that I wouldn't have a problem with. But $10 a day for a 3-day con, like that racks up fast.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep taking my Wild Bills mug to cons where I know they're gonna be, but I am pretty disappointed with what I ended up buying.
Yeah. I will say, if you are looking for like cons to go to, I did discover that the Wild Bill's website does have a list of like events they're going to be at. So if you look at that list, even if you don't have a Wild Bill's mug, if you're like looking for maybe a con in your area, you can look at that list and it says like what state it's in and everything like that. So it's another kind of cheat way to look for cons if something's not posted on the website.
That's
It's also
actually not a bad idea.
yeah. It's also interesting because they clearly cover a lot of things that aren't cons that we would go to, like monster truck rallies, or like I think like there was a lawn care convention this weekend that they're doing. So go that.
Go then. Lawn con.
No, that joke's not going to make any sense to anyone.
No.
Never mind. Okay. So next we have volunteers versus paid employees.
So generally speaking, most cons can't run without volunteers. Volunteers are, as implies, they volunteer their time to the con, and they do not receive financial compensation in exchange. Now, it's not saying that they don't get anything in exchange. Most volunteers at cons will get some kind of perk for being a volunteer. So, for example, most conventions, if you work a set number of volunteer hours, you will get a free badge, so that so that you can attend the convention without having to pay anything.
Mm-hmm.
That is super, super useful for people who are on a bit of a limited budget and want to attend the con without breaking the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Other perks are they will frequently feed you.
Yep.
And there are various other perks. Depending on the con, there are also staff positions at con. This is people who actually work for the con.
And keep in mind that just because a con is a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean they don't employ some staff.
Yes.
I say as a person who works at a nonprofit and is staff there.
Yep.
So are you.
Yeah. Like our university that we work for is a non-profit organization. That does not mean we don't get paid.
Yeah. So keep in mind that just because something is nonprofit doesn't mean they're not paying people. It's just they're paying people a set salary to basically keep the nonprofit functional. The goal of a nonprofit isn't to make money. That's the difference between like something like Colossal or something like GalaxyCon and something like Starbase Indy.
Yes.
And Starbase Indy, I have no doubt, doesn't actually pay anybody because they're way too small to.
Yeah.
But other maybe larger cons do. Like this is something we've been talking about with Colossal Con because it's still unclear to me on what its exact nonprofit status is.
Yeah.
Colossal Con makes the Kalahari Resort tons of money.
Yes.
But having spoken, because I've gone to some panels with some of the higher tier volunteer employees, they're not making money.
No.
Even though they're making the Kalahari tons of money.
Yes.
So
we're a bit unclear on how that relationship works.
yes, because it is possible the con itself is a nonprofit, even the hotel is making money from the con. And this is something that still is kind of, I think, it's a tricky talking point, right, of when something should be a paid job as opposed to a not paid job.
Yes.
Like, there's some non-paid positions, like I know Uncle Kage doesn't make money through Anthrocon, and I'm just like, that needs to be somebody's full-time job at this point.
Probably,
it just does.
But, yeah. So, yeah, like, nobody at Anthrocon, despite it being a
giant con.
How many people were at it last year?
Around 20,000, a little under.
20,000-ish person con. Nobody is taking a salary at that con. Mm-hmm. Everybody who works for them does it as a volunteer, gets a free badge, and maybe a comped hotel room.
Yeah, depending on how high up they are.
Yeah, like I know Uncle Kage, in exchange for everything he does as con chair, he does not take a salary, but he does get the con to basically pay for a decent hotel room for him for the day, the days while it's running. Which, based on the comments, I think he deliberately gets a suite, so he's got spare space in case anybody needs it.
Yep. That's what he himself has said.
Yeah. And honestly, I absolutely believe that. That's the kind of thing he would do.
Yeah. So this is a continuing like controversy and issue that you do kind of have to think about as you're going to cons of just like who's getting paid, who's not. Because the reality of it is most cons aren't going to be functional if you pay everyone who's involved. They're just not.
They're just not. Most of them do not make enough money to justify that. Like unless you want to like treble ticket prices, that ain't happening. Whereas there are plenty of there are cons that do have staff that are paid. Again, GalaxyCon is one of them. But generally speaking, most cons can't operate without volunteers. Mm-hmm. And again, if you want to volunteer for a con, go for it. Mm-hmm. There are perks to doing it. But it does mean that you might be spending half the con sitting outside a door badge checking.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, that's fine.
Yeah. Next we have Hotel as Werewolf. This is where people don't like. So this is kind of the inverse of ghosting. This is where you get a badge for the con, but you don't get a hotel room, but also you don't get anywhere else to sleep. So
Oh,
you hang out in the con space, and one way that you do that is effectively just staying. For a lot of cons that have all night programming, they, if nothing else is going on, will just be games of Werewolf.
Yeah.
So you'll either play games of Werewolf or you'll sleep in the AMV room.
Yeah.
Which is where they show music videos.
Yep. Yeah. So some cons do pride themselves on being full 24-hour events that just are constantly have stuff going on. It's not common. Constantly. But it does exist. Like Colossal Con, I think, does that. Origins, I think, does that.
Yeah.
And there are some people who will argue that if you just, never go to bed, you can save a lot of money on a hotel room. Those people are all teenagers.
Yep.
Because everybody above the age of 25 knows how goddamn insane that is.
Yep.
But it is theoretically possible.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Going for an entire day without, if you just went on Saturday and went till Sunday evening without sleep, yeah, that's achievable. If you're trying to go to Origins...
That's 5 days.
That's 5 days without sleeping. You're insane and you're definitely going to hurt yourself. Yep. Don't do that. Like, I know hotel rooms in Columbus can be a bit pricey, but for God's sake, we'll put you up before we let you do that.
Yeah. Like, seriously, that is actually an offer that's available for anyone who's listening. At some point, we would need to talk about logistics and, like, safety concerns if we don't know you, but let us know.
Yeah. Okay, for the record, we do actually already have somebody staying with us for Origins.
Yes, we do.
We do.
And we also might be staying with somebody else for parts of Origins.
Who knows? We have not yet figured that out. But anyway.
But if you do, if you are a listener of this podcast and you would like to ever share an Airbnb or something like that with us, we're amenable to talking about it.
Yep.
Keep in mind I have a disability, though, and my needs are weird. So.
Yeah. Yeah, things are complicated with you. So,
yeah. But we do want to help anyone out who wants to go to cons. Speaking of things that don't help people out when they want to go to cons, see how good I am with the segues? Security theater.
Okay, so you know how going to the airport really friggin' sucks?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hate it when cons do the same sort of nonsense.
Because in addition to it not working, because let's be honest, it doesn't work at airports, with cons, people are in costumes.
Yep.
So it especially doesn't work because metal detectors and costumes don't mix because most costumes have metal on them.
Yep, like anytime you're wearing a hoop skirt, that sucker has spring steel in it because that's how hoop skirts work.
And I'm obviously not going to be wearing a hoop skirt to an airport.
No. Like, at least with an airport, you know exactly what you're getting into and you plan for it. Yeah, whereas at a con, you don't expect to have to deal with that. Like, a basic prop check so that they can look at your fake gun and make sure it is in fact fake, or make sure your sword isn't sharp, fine. Not a problem, that's quick and easy. Whereas lines where they're doing like pat-downs, metal detector checks, all of that stuff, all you're doing is annoying your attendees. And occasionally screwing over the disabled.
Yep.
Looking at you, GalaxyCon.
And as a reminder, if you have not watched or listened to our addendum on that particular con, I want to emphasize this again. They chose to have those security there.
Yep.
The reason this happened is because they chose to put security where security didn't belong.
Yep.
No one else made that decision but them.
Correct.
And that's why that happened.
Yep.
The convention center did not make them put up metal detectors. They chose to do that.
Yeah.
So, speaking of things cons can do, or sometimes can't, gender-neutral bathrooms.
Yes. So, frequently at cons, you're operating under whatever the available bathrooms are at your venue.
Yep. Sometimes cons will try to change some of the restrooms to gender-neutral bathrooms.
Yes.
Sometimes, convention centers will have just straight-up gender-neutral bathrooms. They tend to be the ones that are just single-stall or family restrooms.
Yep, which is fine.
Yep. Sometimes the various hotels and conventions will allow them to switch what are typically male-female restrooms into gender-neutral bathrooms.
Yeah, which they frequently just do by slapping a piece of paper over the sign with gender-neutral restroom written on it, which is fine.
Yeah, and keep in mind, if you don't see this at a con, that could be for a myriad of reasons that aren't to do with the con, because there's a lot of anti-trans bullshit laws that exist. I don't care that I curse, because the laws are that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's usually on a state-by-state basis. Some states actively will not let you have a gender-neutral restroom unless it's single stall.
Yeah, I will say some conventions know that and still are just like, nah, you can do it. It's fine.
Yep.
Because I know that Ohio has some laws that I've seen skirted quite a few times at cons, which I'm glad about.
Yeah, we're not going to call out any specific cons on that, but we know it happens.
We know. But I also understand venues not wanting to have a lawsuit against them for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
And sometimes, even if a state does allow it, a venue will just say no because they might view it as a potential lawsuit issue, even though it wouldn't be.
Yep.
So it's not always on cons, but it's nice when they try.
Yep.
Cosplay cleric.
So cosplay clerics are basically roaming cosplay repair rooms.
Yep.
This is an individual who has taken it upon themselves to have a bunch of emergency cosplay supplies on them at all times. So basic sewing kit, some glue, all of that kind of stuff. The exact nature of what's in a cosplay cleric's supplies varies wildly from cleric to cleric. This isn't like some official organization or anything. This is just people who want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will have a sign that says, "I am a cosplay cleric, come to me if you need assistance." You're not going to see them at every con, but if they're there, they are there to help.
Yep. Next we have cosplay. I think I'm going to say mean people. Originally I did say mean girls. I think that's mostly just because it's not because girls are mean. It's more because girls are more likely to cosplay, or femme-presenting people generally tend to be about 80% of the cosplayers.
Yeah. So cosplay mean people is basically what you think it is. It's people who have a very, for lack of a better phrase, high school attitude.
Yep.
Where they will judge you for everything they think is wrong with your costume.
Mm-hmm.
We've had this happen to us before, where your Persephone outfit, 99% of the people who comment on your Persephone outfit are saying really nice things about it because it looks awesome.
Yep.
And then somebody at one point asked us how the flowers are attached, and they are just safety pinned in place.
Yep.
Because that was quick, that was easy, it looks decent, and it's easy to repair if there are problems.
Yep.
And somebody described it as, and I quote, more disgusting than hot glue.
Yes. And I will also say, for bizarrely, because when I have had this happen, these also seem to be people who are bizarrely okay with touching my cosplay without asking, because that's happened a couple times. Which is, anyone who cosplays should know that that's not okay.
Yep.
You should never touch another person's cosplay without asking.
Yep. It's the exact same rules for any kind. Look, cosplay is art. It is wearable art, and it's the same rules you will find at any Warhammer tournament. You don't touch the other guy's models without permission.
Yep.
Because that is a work of art that somebody has spent time and effort and love on. It's the same way that, if you want to hug a furry, you make sure they're comfortable with it before you do that, because touching that costume is something they might not want you to do.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight against you personally, it's just that probably cost them a whole bunch of money, and they probably put a lot of love and time and effort and all that other stuff into it.
So next we have con booths, or con row. This is basically a row at the side of the vendor's hall. That is where cons advertise for other cons. They'll typically have spinny wheels that give out small prizes. Occasionally you can win a free badge.
Yep. Generally speaking, they're just there to advertise at each other's conventions. And generally speaking, there is no harm in this. This is just... these cons aren't... A lot of people argue that every con is in competition with every other con. That's just not true.
Most cons, I don't think, believe that these days. The only time that that's happened is generally been when one con is split off from another con.
Yep. Which does happen.
Yep.
But generally speaking, because these cons are on different weekends, if you're a con that's in March and you're advertising at an event in January, you're not in competition with each other. If you're two cons that are in January and are one weekend after the other, then you're slightly in competition with each other, just because some people can't justify the price of going to both. But as long as you're a month apart, you are not directly competing with each other, and that's fine.
Next we've got what?
Look at that guy's license plate.
Sure.
It says hi, officer.
Yeah, I don't know if we should be reading out people's licenses. In fairness, it doesn't exactly say that. It's spelled differently.
It's spelled differently. It's just, that's clearly the message.
Yes.
That's pretty solid. Anyway.
Celebrity petting zoos.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier...
Also, I love whoever coined this phrase.
Yeah, so do I. I want to know who coined it. You're brilliant. But there is a certain type of convention that usually one of the big ones, so GalaxyCon, Fan Expo, that has become, rather than an event that's about having a good time, that's it has become a case of, we have this massive roster of celebrities. Come, meet them, pay extra for an autograph, see them for 2 minutes, stand in line for 3 hours, pet the celebrity, and then move on.
Well, like, this is the thing that I've actually been thinking more about with this kind of today, as we've been watching some videos and thinking more on it. It's just like, and I've heard a few times at furry cons, but I think it's true of most cons generally, is like, most conventions that aren't celebrity focused feel like they're a celebration of the fans, of being a fan of that thing. Like furry cons, you're very clearly all fans of each other. At steampunk cons, it's the same way, where you're fans not of a particular steampunk thing, but of people who like steampunk. At sci-fi cons, you're a fan of being part of that community. So it's a celebration of you. It's not a celebration of celebrity.
It says something that a lot of sci-fi cons these days go very heavily into having writer guests.
Yep.
And like not even especially well-known famous writers, just like people who write science fiction books. And that I think is a really good thing, because they are celebrating that creativity within the community. Whereas the celebrity petting zoo model is very much, how many celebrities can we pack into our event so that we can bring in as many people as possible?
Yep.
And they don't actually care if, one, the celebrities have a good time, or two, the people trying to meet them have a particularly good time. Because here's the thing, if there's a line of 500 people behind you to meet the one celebrity, congratulations, you've got maybe 2 minutes.
Yep.
If you're lucky. You go up, they sign a thing, you move on. And if that interaction is worth the $150 that con ticket probably cost you, great.
I will also point out that the vast majority of these, and by vast I mean vast, they don't have any pricing for autographs or anything like that till you get to the front of the booth.
Yep.
Which is not helpful.
Yeah.
Hydration stations.
Cons, generally speaking, should have water stations. Not all of them do, all of them should.
Yep.
Because staying hydrated is really important when you're running around all weekend. Depending on the size of the con space, you could be walking literal miles over the course of a con weekend. And it is very, very important for you to stay hydrated, especially if you are in a big, bulky costume. There is a reason why the thing I put on the FurCon, whose model was it last week, the Jackbox games, there's a reason why that won its particular round.
Yep.
Because hydrate is always good advice at any convention. Like one of the scavenger hunts we did a couple of years ago was adding new things daily for you to get, and every day they included new picture of you drinking water at this con, please.
Even though I maintain that like hydration is actually an over thing people tend to worry about more than they should, even I do admit at cons you need free hydration water, because otherwise if you don't have free water, people aren't going to drink at all, and that's bad.
Yeah. And again, like, just having water fountains is good enough, but preferably you want like actual like proper water stations with like available cups and things, because some people just forget to bring a water bottle with them. And for the record, any con that charges $4 for a bottle of water, you're dicks.
Yep.
Looking at you, Pittsburgh Convention Center, David Lawrence Convention Center, like, your water is overpriced. Knock it off.
So we're on to tier 5, I think.
Cool. We've got an hour until we get home.
We've got like 4 more. These tiers are shorter-ish. Okay, tells a story. That's going to take a while.
Oh boy. Okay. So this is a particular personal thing about judging at cosplay conventions.
Yep.
Or cosplay competitions, rather. So, judging at cosplay competitions is incredibly random, because it depends entirely on who the judges are and what they personally care about. 90% of time, the reason why something wins a cosplay award is not necessarily because it was the best thing, it was just the thing that did the judge like the most. And we are aware that some judges, we are thinking of a specific individual here, but we're not going to name them, do not like the idea that the costume tells a story can be a reason to give it an award. Because they are incredibly focused purely on the technical aspects and nothing else.
Well, I do find it interesting that fur cons don't have cosplay competitions for fursuits.
Yeah, they don't.
And it is interesting because, like, when I think about like what cosplay has become, both for performance and for construction, is it's becoming more craft than art.
Yes.
Like, it feels like it's becoming something for which it's whoever can do the most technical stuff, as opposed to, or what's ever most technically impressive, as opposed to what's most artistically interesting.
Yeah. And again, you and I were commenting on this weekend with regards to the Winter Olympics, which are currently going on.
Mm-hmm.
The men's figure skating has just become this incredibly technical thing where they don't actually, like, the person who won fell multiple times because they were just doing incredibly complex stuff. So they were getting points for attempting the incredibly complex stuff, and as a result, the routine wasn't actually that good or artistic to watch, as opposed to women's figure skating, which was just incredibly beautiful artistic work. And I worry that cosplay's falling in the same direction, where it's just like,
and we can't solve it just by getting rid of Russian figure skaters.
no.
The joke makes a ton of sense if you actually understand this.
Yes.
You don't, but it's fine.
I don't, but it's fine. But, generally speaking, there is a certain type of cosplayer and cosplay judge who, the costume is not very interesting for the audience, but they use this super intense, really complicated stitch in this one particular material, and that's really hard and difficult to do. And it's like, yeah, but they could have achieved the same effect with an incredibly basic stitch and a different material. They only did that because they knew the judge would like it.
Well, I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen stuff that's like silk or chiffon, which are hard fabrics to sew, and seen them sew and been able to see from the audience that they're puckering, which they're not supposed to do, but the lines are technically straight, which is hard to do, and seen stuff like that win when that just was not the right fabric to use for that particular costume, because silk and chiffon is a very delicate fabric. You wouldn't actually use it for most character concepts,
Yep.
But they do so they can get extra points.
Yep. And again, we kind of hate that about cosplay competitions. We're not denigrating the skills involved, it's just we worry that the play is getting taken out of cosplay as a result of just incredibly technically skilled people who want to dominate the scene, because they actually make it arguably unwelcoming for people like us.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we don't do craftsmanship competitions anymore. We tried initially when we started and very quickly realized that it was not the space for us.
Yeah, we've done them at a few smaller cons that I know will actually appreciate the fact that I like thrift stuff. Like steampunk cons don't mind that I thrift and modify stuff.
Yeah, because 90% of the people who make stuff for steampunk thrift and modify.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the next thing on this list is not giving out awards.
Oh boy, this is another complaint about cosplay competitions. So, here's the thing. A lot of cosplay competitions will have a list of awards on their website that they're going to give out. And then when the con comes around, for whatever reason, they don't. Usually, it's because they have a list of 7 awards on their website and they get 7 entries for their competition.
And we can't give everyone an award. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. So instead, they just end up giving out a best, a best group, a best individual, and a best in show. You can just give out all of the blooming awards. Other cons have handled this better. CosiCon, a couple of years ago, did not have a single entry for their best prop award. So they just gave the award to whoever they thought had the best prop from the other categories. That's a perfectly valid way to handle nobody entering your best prop category. That's fine.
And keep in mind, as I think I mentioned during the OhioCon podcast, because they had this problem, if you don't give out an award in a category, the audience isn't going to know that category exists, and then no one else is going to enter that category next year.
Yep.
If you give an award out, even if they were the only skit, somebody might be like, oh, there are awards for skits. I like doing skits. I'm going to enter in a skit next year. Because that way I don't feel like I have to compete against a bunch of dancers.
Yep. So yeah, generally speaking, hand out all the goddamn awards you say you're going to. Granted, it might be, if you genuinely don't have... If you have more awards than contestants, fair enough. Just give everybody one and move on. Fair enough. You don't have to give one contestant multiple awards. But if you... unless you are in a situation... I'm going to be honest. If you're in a situation where, you have 7 awards to give out and 8 contestants, make up another goddamn award to give that 8th person.
Yeah.
It's fine. More awards are better than fewer, insofar as, that's actually going to encourage people to go away and come back and enjoy your event. Whereas you not giving out awards is more likely to make people not want to come back.
Yep. And at the very least, before people go on, just in the interest of transparency, tell them what awards you're giving out.
Yes.
Because if you're doing it after the fact, that just makes people feel like you just decided they weren't good enough to have an award, which is never going to make them feel good.
That's happened to us.
Yep. Wargamer stereotypes.
Was that wargamer stereotypes?
Wargamer stereotypes.
Specifically wargamers?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the thing. Wargamers have a rep. As a Warhammer fan, I'm aware of that rep. We're kind of judged to be really antisocial, really rules obsessed. Poor personal hygiene is another thing that we have a rep for. For the record, most of these things aren't necessarily true.
When was the last time you showered?
Shut up. But, generally speaking, wargamers are actually nice, decent people. It's just very frequently they get a little obsessive.
Yeah. There's definitely some stereotypes that are true, some stereotypes that are false about them generally. And you can meet a lot of nice wargamers. I will say that there's a group of people who've definitely been in gaming since before even D&D was a thing. And they can be nice, but not all of them are quite adapted to modern standards, I think is a fair way to put it.
Yes. I think that's fair.
And I don't think it's fair to say that everyone who is old is necessarily a bad gamer, because some of my favorite gamers ever are in their 80s, but okay, next we've got panel compensation.
So as we mentioned before, whether panelists are effectively another branch of volunteers at cons, because most panelists will pitch a panel to a con and say, hey, I would like to do this, I think it will be good, and then depending on the con, they will either get a yay or a nay. This varies on a whole bunch of factors, we got turned down for Techo last year, just because Techo gets a lot of programming offered to it. They can't accept everything that gets offered to them, and that's fine. Whereas some cons are kind of desperate for programming. And generally speaking, most conventions will offer some kind of perks for being a panelist, the most common of which is badge reimbursement.
Yep.
And again, that varies wildly. Starbase Indie, you do one panel for them, everybody on that panel gets a free badge for the weekend.
Yep.
Love that. That's great. Whereas some cons, like GalaxyCon, sorry to keep using GalaxyCon as an example, but they just do a lot of things badly. GalaxyCon will give you one free badge
for one day.
For 1 day.
For one person.
For one person.
Per panel.
Per panel. And here's the thing. The way that works is if you do 3 panels, but all 3 panels are on Friday, you're getting a free Friday badge.
Yeah, and you have no control over when your panels are submitted. You can select potential time slots.
Yep.
Generally, but if they see that you submitted 3 panels, they might just put all 3 of them on Friday. There's no way to stop them from doing that.
Yep. Which means if you were doing that specifically to get a free badge for the entire weekend, you are out of luck, Sonny Jim. Yeah, so generally speaking, it's about knowing what cons are worth paneling at. Just be aware that the ones that have really good policies probably are going to get a lot of people wanting to panel at them.
So next we have spending too much money in the dealer's hall jokes.
Oy. Okay, so if you go to certain cons, you're probably going to get a lot of the same jokes, which is, hey, is everybody liking the con? Has everybody spent too much money in the vendor's hall?
Yep.
It's not funny. It never has been funny. Knock it off.
It's fine for you to joke about yourself spending too much money in the vendor's hall, but saying somebody else has spent too much of their own money in the vendor's hall is not okay.
Yeah, because there are 2 reasons why that's not okay that I can think of off the top of my head. There may be more. One, it's not okay to tell somebody what they can do with their own money. And 2, there is an implication that if you haven't spent more money than you are comfortable with in the vendor's hall, then you haven't spent enough. It actively feels like you are encouraging people to spend beyond their means, specifically so that your con makes more money. Yep. And screw you for that.
Yep.
So yeah, we kind of hate these jokes with a burning passion.
Yeah. Next, we have panel camping, which we do a lot. I will admit.
We do a lot. Panel camping is the art of going to a panel that's that you're not that interested in, specifically so you can be in the room to make sure you have a seat for the panel after it.
Which turns out if your con doesn't have accessibility lines, and most don't for panels, this is just kind of what you have to do.
Yeah, fairly frequently. Sometimes panel camping involves going to the entire panel. Sometimes it's just going in for like the last 10, 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and like getting a seat somewhere near the back so you can like dive forwards and get a good seat when everybody else leaves. That's pretty common.
Yeah. And obviously, I have accessibility issues that often aren't catered to at cons. That's why we do it. I also just don't think it's not really that bad a thing to do generally, as long as you're respectful of the previous panel.
Yeah. Like, and sometimes it ends up kind of working out in an interesting way. Like, for example, GalaxyCon a couple of years ago, you wanted to go to the Boy Meets World panel.
Yep.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't really care about that, but the panel right before it was an interview with various Star Trek actors. I was interested in that one, so we basically said, okay, what we'll do, we'll go to the Star Trek one, we'll get decent seats, and then we'll keep those decent seats through the Boy Meets World panel.
Yep.
That's fine. That happens a lot. And there are times when a con will have back-to-back panels in a room, and you will just stay there for several hours because what's on back-to-back is stuff that all interests you. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, provided the con doesn't have room clearing, which, side note, cons, for the love of God, don't clear rooms.
Mm-hmm.
There is one situation where I think it's legit to clear a panel room, and that's if you are physically changing the space.
Yep.
Like, if if you need to, like, maneuver the chairs around for some reason, fine, then you can clear the room. Otherwise, just let people come in.
Mm-hmm. Next, we've got con couples.
That's not just us.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's couples who go to cons.
Why is this a category?
Because I thought it was funny.
Okay.
I can move on.
Okay.
Con games.
Okay. So some cons will have a game associated with them. This varies wildly in complexity and quality. For some, the con game is, we've hidden a bunch of QR codes at our vendors' booths. Go around those vendors' booths and scan those QR codes.
As I've emphasized before, and will emphasize again, it's never fun to scan QR codes.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, those just suck. Alternatively, the con game might be a little overcomplicated. Like, Key City, I love you guys. Your con game is frequently completely inscrutable.
Yep.
It frequently involves like a bunch of stuff. Like acquiring potion components and mixing them to create magical potions. I still have no idea.
That was only like one part of that game. There were like 6 other parts of it. It was so confusing.
Yep. The con game might just be some kind of scavenger hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Scavenger hunts work great as con games. Or the other one I've seen fairly frequently is like here's a like stamp book. Mm-hmm. We've put stamps at various places. I'm going to be honest, that one sucks about as much as the QR code.
It's slightly better than the QR code one insofar as you don't have to scan QR codes.
Yeah, but it's still not great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so con games, sometimes they exist.
Yeah. Fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've yet to meet one that really set our world on fire. But...
Cool. Next, finally for this year, I think we've got independent photographers.
Yeah. So frequently, conventions will have hired photographers who will be like in a room. You can like arrange photo shoots with them. That's not uncommon. But it also, generally, a lot of amateur photographers love going to cons just because they get to photograph interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. Like there's one guy who we've seen at a bunch of different cons who's taken our pictures a bunch of different times, just because cosplay is a really cool thing to photograph.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, those amateur photographers will take your picture, hand you a business card, and like they will put the stuff on their website. That's great. Love it when that happens. Generally speaking, that's pretty fun and light.
Cool, we're on to tier 6.
There's how many more tiers are there?
There's 3 more tiers. 4 more. It's fine. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We can always just cut the episode at a certain tier and then save like this stuff for another.
Just talk faster. Go.
Fine. Tier 6. Stripper poles.
Okay, don't install these in your hotel room. That's not a joke. There was a hotel at one point that had that kicked out one of the attendees and had to fine them heavily because they installed a stripper pole in their hotel room. Don't do that. If you want to do that, bring a portable one.
No refunds.
So it's very, very likely that your con ticket is non-refundable. There are some exceptions to that, like if the entire con gets called off. But generally speaking, if you get ill that weekend, you ain't getting your con the price of your ticket back. Like be aware of that when you buy your tickets. And some of them will even put in rules that badges are non-transferable.
Mm-hmm.
Furcons in particular, yeah, your badge is non-transferable.
But you can typically transfer it year to year.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yes.
What do you mean by rules on the website?
Oh, God. Again, this is the thing about cosplay conventions. The rules that they put up on their website almost never match the rules they're operating under.
And it's frustrating because every single time you go to how to compete in a cosplay competition for your first time, the first thing they tell you is to look at the rules on the website.
We have never seen the rules on a website match what actually ends up happening in the competition.
And I want
Ever.
Yep.
You were going to say?
Never mind. We'll just move on to the next thing. Dice testing.
Okay. So, generally speaking, if you're buying dice at a con, people are probably going to want to roll them a couple of times before they buy them just to see if they roll good. That's pretty normal. It's fine. Like, we all have our weird superstitions about dice.
Yep.
Like, I know some people who stack their dice specifically with the ones facing up, facing the top, so that they get them, so the dice get them out of their system.
Mm-hmm.
I know other people who like to put the good numbers on top
to train it to land on those.
Train it to land on those. Like, we all have our weird dice traditions, and they're mostly just there for comedy.
I mean, there was that one guy who was playing at your table who.
Yeah. So one guy during my Mass Effect game at a Catacon, the entire game rolling a d20 couldn't roll above like a 7.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually got fed up with his die, said, "I'll be back in a minute." Stood up, walked away, threw the die to his wife, said, "Burn that."
Mm-hmm.
Then came back from the vendors, booths like 5-10 minutes later, with a whole new dice set. Got it out, rolled it. It rolled like a 17. It was like, that'll do. Didn't roll below a 16 the entire rest of the game. Love that.
Yep.
That was great.
Next, we've got game signups ?
Okay, so this is when you're going to try and play a TTRPG at a non-board game con.
Yep.
So sometimes people will be running like D&D or maybe Pathfinder at a convention that's not specifically a board game con. How you sign up for that is usually pretty goddamn vague.
Yep.
That usually does involve just turning up at the time it's supposed to happen and hoping you get one of the 6 slots.
Yep.
Now, you've got a much better chance of pulling this off at a non-board game con, purely because, generally speaking, most people aren't at an anime con to play D&D. But if that's what you want to do, good luck. Because they might have a way to sign up in advance, they probably don't.
Yep. And if they do, it's very confusing.
Yep.
Jenga.
Why are there so many giant Jenga sets at cons?
Yeah, pretty much every con will just have a giant Jenga set, and at some point you will be near it and it will explode.
Yep.
Like, I don't mean fall, I mean explode.
Yep. It's just like nobody was near it, and the whole thing just kind of like did a thing, and now there are Jenga blocks everywhere. We're not quite sure how that happened, but oh well.
Yep. Also, for whatever reason, like, when people do play with it, it falls on the first turn every single time. You're like, how?
How are you all this bad at Jenga?
Yep. Con charity budget.
So this operates under the exact same principle as the vendors hall. I would recommend bringing your charity budget in cash, because it's okay. Even if you are giving money to a charity, it's okay to operate under a budget. Like, some people might know that they have a budget of $1,000 to spend in the charity auction. That's fine. For other people, you might only have $50 to play with for the weekend, and you want to make sure that you don't overspend.
Yep.
Bring it in cash. Keep it simple.
Bring small denominations so you can spread it out across the course of the weekend.
Yep.
Oversaturated 3D and crochet market.
Yeah. So, what I was saying earlier about the artist alley, for whatever reason, crochet is really the flavor of the month at anime cons.
Also 3D printed stuff.
Yes, I was going to talk about 3D printed stuff after the crochet stuff
Okay.
too. So, the crochet stuff, a lot of it is really well done. A lot of it is really cute. It's just there's a lot of it at cons, and it is getting a little samey. So just be aware if you're trying to sell crochet goods at a con, you're probably not going to be the only one. 3D printed stuff, on the other hand, okay. 3D printed stuff getting sold in the artist alley, I'm a little leery of. Like, if it's actually stuff you designed yourself, I don't really have a problem with. But
It's that tutorial dragon that everyone sells.
yeah, like I'm kind of sick of seeing that. No offense. Like, there is a lot of really cool 3D printed stuff out there, but there are only so many times I can see that particular like 3D printed dragon thing and not like question the amount of effort you put in order to create that. Because that STL is clearly going around somewhere. Next.
Origin ticketing crashes.
So, Origins uses tabletop events, which I like tabletop events. I think it's really good as a system. It does basically everything I want a tabletop cons event to do. With that said, it's also not really designed for the mass rush that happens when Origins ticket sales go live. And I mean the tickets for individual events, not badge sales.
Yep.
Those are different things. You know, it's fine for badge sales because generally speaking, Origins badges don't sell out. Tickets for individual events do. Which means when the the tickets go live, there is usually a mass scrum of everybody trying to get in and get stuff as quickly as possible. So for the last few years, tabletop events has crashed. Last year, they used Qt to slow everything down, make sure that only a certain number of people were buying badges at once, and the system didn't crash.
It didn't crash, created a bunch of whole other problems, but it did not crash.
Yeah, the whole other problems being, because tabletop events lets you buy badges for your friends, it does mean that if you didn't get in within about the first 20 minutes, all the event tickets were gone.
Yeah, I will say pretty much every single RPG sold out. That wasn't like Pathfinder or Starfinder or something that was like major campaign systems. All of those were gone within the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And probably will be again.
Yep. Like, again, for Origins, you pretty much have to have every possible device you can logged in and ready to go. And it helps to have a large friends group that's going, where one person who gets a low number in the queue can just rattle through it as quickly as possible and get tickets for everybody. Like, that's what we ended up doing last year.
Yep.
Our friend Betty, or Calzone Betty, who you heard on the podcast, she ended up getting all of our tickets for Origins because she got the lowest queue number. They got the lowest queue number. I'm very sorry, Betty.
So that's tier 6.
Yep.
Tier 7, power grabbing social media campaigns.
What did you say? Power grabbing?
Power grabbing social media campaigns where we maybe say bad things about cons in an attempt to control this happens a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Standard rule of thumb: if you're talking smack about a con on social media, disclose the reason why. Like, if it's just you were an attendee and you had a sucky time, fine. If you're attempting to pull some sort of coup nonsense and wrest control of the con, don't do that.
Just start your own con.
Just start your own con. It is also generally worth noting that I'm kind of sick of all the negativity about cons online.
Yeah, I'm
cons
too.
are great. We love them to bits, and it's really frustrating that the videos that always get the hits are the worst con ever videos.
Yeah. Like, we try to compliment sandwich stuff, and we're happy to help out with cons, but I don't think we want to take over somebody else's con.
God, no.
And also, anyone who runs a con shouldn't view it as their con, and the vast majority of con people we view don't view it as that.
Yep. Now, generally speaking, the good cons, the people who work for them know that it's an honor and a privilege to be doing that. It's also frequently exhausting and maddening, but it's not a source of ego or power or control.
Gen Con reimbursement.
Oh boy. So again, hyper-specific.
We're on tier 7, so...
Yeah. So, Gen Con's reimbursement badge policy sucks on toast. Because at Gen Con, you have to pay, not only for the con, you have to pay for the individual games. You're usually looking at about $2 per hour per person for games. And you will get printed tickets. You need to make sure you hand that printed ticket to the GM, because if they do not turn in all of the printed tickets, they don't get reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dick move, Gen Con.
Yep. It's also just a dick that you have to pay for individual events.
Yeah. Because, like, Gen Con is probably the most expensive con we do.
It's not close.
Between overnight stay, parking, which is complete bonkers. Overnight stay, parking, the actual tickets for the event itself, and then the tickets for the individual games. Yeah, Gen Con is probably our priciest con.
Yep.
Like, by a lot. So,
yeah. Private cons.
So private cons are an interesting thing. This generally tends to be a small gathering of a group who are contemplating doing a con and are basically prototyping stuff.
Yeah, well, it can be prototyping. It can be like a special thing for like volunteers at a different convention.
Yep.
So I know the Dorsai has one. I know some furry ones have one too that are just mostly friends groups that are getting together though. And the extent to which these are cons versus just friends getting together is kind of nebulous a lot of the time.
Yep.
But they will typically be people who are associated with other bigger cons kind of getting together on a smaller scale somehow.
Yes.
We have been invited to one or two.
We have.
Obviously, if we ever get invited again, we're not going to review them on a podcast without anyone's consent.
I'm like, we know AdamCon started literally as a gathering at Adam's house. That's why it's called AdamCon. And it's now, a couple of thousand people raising many, many thousands of dollars for a good charity cause. So good for them. Next.
No food allowed, in quotation marks.
Okay, so the number of convention centers that have no outside food or drink printed on their doors is high. The number of cons that actually care about it is medium to low.
Yep.
Like, generally speaking, the con isn't going to police that, especially because, like, again, a lot of your attendees probably have specific dietary requirements.
Yep.
So just generally speaking, don't flaunt it. Don't be an idiot about it, and you'll be fine. With that said, if the con is doing security thin and nonsense, you might get screwed over. Looking at you, what con was it where they emptied out the bottle of water?
That was Cincinnati Comic Con.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Which we have not been back to.
We have not been back to because Cincinnati Comic Con literally made me dump out a bottle of water.
Despite saying that bottled water was allowed.
Mm-hmm. Because again, security theater is always applied arbitrarily.
Yep.
Next.
The con puzzle.
So this is the thing some cons do. It's board game cons in particular, but also like steampunk cons and sci-fi cons also do it a lot. You just put a jigsaw puzzle out on a table and let people have at it over the course of the weekend.
Yep, I love this thing.
Yep.
It's simple, it's easy, it's great. It adds to the con.
It's something that people could spend like 10 minutes doing while they're waiting for a panel to start. It's a great idea.
Blood on the Clock Tower meta and its fans.
We have to talk about Blood on the Clock Tower meta.
Yeah.
Okay, so Blood on the Clock Tower is a social deduction game, as we've mentioned in the podcast a bunch. It's very, very popular because it's a lot more complex than Werewolf, but it is a lot more interesting than Werewolf. Mm-hmm. With that said, there are some people who are utterly convinced they are geniuses at it, and will try and chase the meta strategy for Blood on the Clock Tower.
And also then yell at you for not playing the way that they play.
Yep.
And keep in mind, if you're playing at a con, you're going to be playing with it's going to be a complete chaotic mess.
Yep.
It just is.
Frequently you're going to be playing with children, people who've never played before. Anybody who claims to be an expert at Blood on the Clock Tower is probably not. Mm-hmm. We are people who vaguely enjoy Blood on the Clock Tower sometimes.
Generally where there's nothing else to do.
Yep. Which is about the right level to enjoy Blood on the Clock Tower, I'm not going to lie. It's fine. With the right group of people, it is incredibly fun. But finding that right group of people at a con is an absolute crapshoot roll of the dice. You have no idea.
And finally, for this tier, we've got contradictory text on the website, which is more my thing because I think I'm on them more than you. But it's basically, I will say, I can tell cons to just copy and paste policies from other cons on their various policy pages and stuff like that. And then something will happen and they'll put text above it, but that person who's fixing the website doesn't look at the text before it. So sometimes it will say the same sentence 4 or 5 different times. And sometimes it will just say stuff that contradicts each other because no one's actually looked at the entire page in 10 years. It's kind of a fascinating mess. And there's a lot of cons like this.
Yeah. I'll say this: Anthrocon, as far as I know, doesn't do that, largely because they have an actual lawyer
Yep.
who knows to tell them not to do that.
But yeah, a lot of cons, big and small, are swimming soups of just contradictory texts on their website. It's very annoying.
Yep.
Okay, tier 8.
Okay.
We're making good time.
We've got 30 minutes.
Okay. Criminal Sanctuary Enthusiast.
What?
I think this is something I've had to deal with more than you, just because I'm more on the webs. So, gun-free zones are called by gun nuts as criminal sanctuaries.
Ah.
And some people, and this is obviously not us, do not like being told that they can't bring their guns into con spaces. And will complain about it loudly on the internet.
Yeah. And again, like generally speaking, you don't need a firearm at a con.
You definitely don't need a firearm at a con.
Again, our campus is also a firearm-free zone, and I've heard the staff complain about that sometimes.
The faculty don't.
Yeah. But, like, it's very much one of those things that, like, prop guns are fine. Like, if you're providing it's very clearly a prop, it's not an issue. You don't need a real, like, 44 Magnum to complete your Dirty Harry cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just dangerous.
And it can be scary for other attendees. So I guess if you are somebody who likes to open or conceal carry, you should check these various policies. I would just advise not bringing guns because you don't need them.
Yeah, like there's a reason why I don't bring steel blades to cons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would I love to do a Grey Warden cosplay with a a reenactment grade blade, steel sword at some point? Yes, I would. Am I ever going to do it? No, because I'm pretty sure actual steel armor probably would get banned as well. Because I'm a living weapon at that point. Also, it would weigh too much, but you know. Next.
Furry COVID policies.
Why furry COVID policies specifically?
Think about it.
Oh, yeah. So, fursuits, if you're, what I was mentioning earlier about everybody swapping diseases and getting conquered, yeah, fursuits actually make for an excellent hazmat suit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter what you're breathing, it ain't making it out of that suit.
Yeah. So they had to, at the time of COVID, when cons were starting to reopen, have a bunch of policies about wearing masks and whether or not you had to wear masks in a fursuit. I think most settled on the fact that you probably, if you were wearing a full fursuit head, you did not have to wear an additional mask under it.
Yeah.
Also, they would probably have problems policing that.
Yeah.
So,
also, they'd probably kill some attendees.
Yep. Also, because furries like to rules lawyer, we did find out at MCFC that apparently some people, in order to get around masking policies, said that because you were, of course, not required to wear a mask while you're eating, just carried around a bag of chips and took one chip out of it whenever anyone called them on it, which...
Technically accurate, at the same time, screw you.
Yeah, knowing furries, I don't even think that was actually about them not wanting to wear masks as much as it was them just wanting to rules lawyer.
Yeah, there is a certain type of furry. Next.
Jeopardy Google points.
Okay. We want to make something very clear. Stop using Google Slides to play Jeopardy.
It kind of sucks.
It kind of sucks. There is free software available online that just lets you do Jeopardy and does it much better.
Yep. I use it for my class.
That's just a personal pet peeve of ours. It's mostly just Google Slides doesn't have a way to tick off the categories you've already done, which means every time you go back to the main screen, you've got to just keep track of it, and it gets really annoying. Next.
Credit card chargebacks.
Okay, this was one very specific incident last
It's not
year's
just this.
MCFC.
I think this is the one that we just were
aware
most
of.
But it is something that I think happens, and unfortunately happens a lot at furry cons, where people will issue chargebacks on credit cards to avoid paying for things.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
It's a dick move.
It is.
If you have got a thing and you paid money for it, don't issue a chargeback.
Yeah.
If you need, because for one thing that actually hurts the company involved. If you discover there's something wrong with it, take it back to the booth you bought it from, and they will probably be willing to work with you. Okay. Okay. Next.
The quiet bathroom.
Okay. So this is a thing that you and I care about.
Yes.
generally speaking, one of the things I do when we first go to a convention center is I scout the space.
Mm-hmm.
I figure out where the emergency exits are, where the fire doors are, where the staircases are, all of this important safety stuff. I also figure out where the quietest bathroom is,
Mm-hmm.
because having to wait in a line for a bathroom sucks.
And if you're in a ball gown, you can only use certain bathrooms, typically handicapped accessible ones.
Yep.
So finding the quiet bathroom is good.
Yeah. Do it early, figure it out, and just remember, it's usually like in a choice between walking for 5 minutes to get to a quiet bathroom and standing in line for 5 minutes for a loud, noisy, probably kind of gross bathroom. I know which is the better option.
Yeah.
Again, especially somewhere like the Columbus Convention Center, that place has a lot of bathrooms.
Yep.
Now, finding a good one is, well, depends on what's going on that weekend.
Elevator etiquette and elevator chaos.
So this is, again, particularly relevant to fur cons.
But it happens at all cons.
It happens at all cons. There is probably going to be a line for the lifts.
Yep.
Because this happened at Sangawa as well. Generally speaking, depending on how many people are at the con, how many floors it's split across, all of that jazz, there will probably be queues for the lifts, and you need to have a certain amount of etiquette for it.
Mm-hmm.
Namely, first, persons with accessibility issues.
Yep.
They get priority. If that person is in a wheelchair or on crutches or anything like that, you let them go before you.
Mm-hmm.
Second, people in big, complex costumes.
Mm-hmm.
This applies to fursuiters. This applies to your ball gowns. Like, they are going to need extra wiggle room. Be polite. Next, everybody else. First come, first serve. Like, figure it out. But generally speaking, you're looking at most lifts are designed for about 8 to 10 people at most. Like, you might have a weird hotel that's got giant lifts that can accommodate 20 people. That's probably not going to be the standard. Anything to add?
No. Ball gown management.
If you plan on wearing a ball gown to the con, marry some idiot Englishman and get him to carry the train for you.
Cosplay handler could also go here, but that's probably higher up, and I just didn't put it on the list.
Yeah. Fursuits, complex costumes. If you can have a friend to handle for you, where their job is to like open doors, hold the back up, all of that kind of stuff, do it. Like, get help. Like I saw somebody once dressed as a full Dalek trying to maneuver around a convention space on their own. It doesn't work. You need a handler.
Fire hazards.
Okay, so cons, we need to talk about this. Overstuffing rooms to the point of being dangerous is a really bad fire hazard. The particular example I'm thinking of happened at AnthroCon, not last year, but the year before.
And they did get better about it.
And they were much better about it last year. I want to clarify that. But there was one panel that was way more popular than I think anybody was expecting, which they completely overstuffed the room. Like, they had people sitting on the floors, they had people sitting in the aisles. If there had been a fire, a lot of people would have died.
Also, as an aside and related to this, do not sit on stairs unless you're having a medical emergency. Just don't. It's dangerous.
Yes. Stairs need to be kept clear for various reasons. Just don't sit on them.
Also, having people in line can also create fire hazards. There's a lot of fire hazards.
Yep.
The Dorsai.
Oh, you've added this.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. The Dorsai are an organization that provides security for conventions. They are entirely volunteer-based. They've been around for, what, a decade? 2 decades at this point? They've been around a while. And they apparently started with science fiction conventions. The idea being that a lot of like professional security companies don't know what the hell they're looking at a convention. Which is part of how you wind up with situations like GalaxyCon zip tying people's extendable walking canes because they didn't know what they were looking at. And GalaxyCon's policy was if the cane, if you had a cane, it had to be part of an outfit. Anyway. But So the door site is the idea being security for cons provided by the kind of people who like to go to cons. So they know what they're looking at, they can be smart about it. They frequently work with cons a lot these days. Those are the things we've seen them at, but I believe basically any con can work with them. So generally speaking, they're a good bunch of folks. They probably are enjoying the convention as much as you are, and as a result, if you are having any problems, they're actually a good person to go to. They might not know the answer, but they probably know which direction to point you in.
And finally, for Tier 8, we've got the NCFC Tornado. I feel bad for this one.
Yeah.
So, like, NCFC, I think we mentioned on last year's episode, had 2 bomb threats called in the previous couple years. This last year, 2025,
Yep.
they didn't have any bomb threats finally at their old venue of Eagle Crest. And we left early that day to get home and record the podcast. By early, I mean we just didn't stick around for the dead dog dance because it's not our thing.
Yep.
The dead dog dance is just a dance that free cons have on Sunday evenings.
Yep.
And during that dance, after they were finally feeling like they got through with no incidents, there was a tornado warning.
Yep.
From what I can tell, they didn't really do much after that. It was just kind of funny and people couldn't leave for a bit.
And again, I will say weather events are something you do have to be cognizant of when it comes to cons.
Yep.
Like, we have been snowed in at a con before. Stuff like that might happen. Just use your common sense and be careful.
Yep. So if we're finally on to Tier 9. And keep in mind, Tier 9 isn't necessarily scandalous, it's just specific. So, Pig LARP.
So Pig LARP was an event we did.
Why do you yawn every single time?
It's not every single time. It's because I take a break from talking. So my body's like, oh, you're done talking. Sweet. Now's a good chance for you to yawn. So Pig LARP was an event that we did that was run by a pig rescue that was raising money.
Yep.
It was cute. It was silly. They haven't done it again since. I regret that fact because Pig LARP was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was laughing, but there were pigs there.
Yep.
They had a bunch of pigs sectioned off in the front garden, specifically because those are the ones that were liable to try and eat costumes. They advised you not to go near them.
You got a cape.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pigs definitely eat your cape.
It would have eaten my cape.
Yep.
Oh, we met Squawk.
Yep. Who was so ugly he circled around to being cute again.
Yep.
This was a pig whose like face was squashed because apparently his mom like laid on where he was as he was developing in the womb. But he was so cute.
He was.
Questionable LARPs. This is basically just things at convention centers that are called LARPs. Which vary a lot in terms of what they actually are.
And how fun they actually are.
Yep.
We've been to some that are really fantastic. Like Lord McAllister's birthday. Great time. We love that event to bits.
There's also the Buffalo LARP, which is just you're hitting people with sticks.
Yeah.
It's not really a LARP. You're just kind of hitting people with sticks.
Yeah, they are padded sticks.
Yeah. And we've been to some that are clearly like meant to tell a story, but they privilege that over like people's in-game experience, which is honestly also part of my issue with Blood on the Clock Tower as a game.
Yeah.
Masquerade performance data.
So there is one panel we went to at
WeebCon,
thank you, that was just a bunch of statistical analysis of Masquerade performances. This was great. This is exactly the kind of nerdy nonsense that we enjoy.
Yeah, I think I still have that because I had them send it to us.
Yep, you did.
Because I just kind of love it in all its nerdy data-ness. I really need to start keeping more records of the stuff we do at cons. Bingo vultures.
What?
That was for CausyCon, but
Yeah.
I think it also applies. So for whatever reason, I think bingo just in general at cons makes people go nuts.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know why either. I think it's just like the appeal of getting free stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just because you got to play bingo. Like, did they do this at your school when you were growing up, where they like had like Valentine's Day bingo or other day bingos where you would like match stuff as a kid and like get snacks and whatever because they just wanted to do something fun with you that day so the teachers could get a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, and like I never was a fan.
Yeah.
Like I've always thought that bingo's kind of a lame form of entertainment.
Yeah, I know you don't like bingo as much as I do. I don't really like it. Like, I like the camaraderie of bingo generally, and the quickness of it, but I get it. Yeah, bingo vultures is just basically crazy behavior involving bingo, because apparently the closer and closer people get to bingo, the crazier and crazier they get.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it other than that.
Yeah, like we heard somebody describe last week's, Bingo After Dark as their favorite event of MCFC,
Which valid if that's you.
whereas we thought it sucked.
Yeah. The underwear run.
Okay. So this is a result of some cons will occasionally let Rocky Horror Picture Show
Yeah.
do a thing. And if you're not familiar with the experience of seeing Rocky Horror Picture Show, screened, it's an experience.
Yep. And for one part of it, I think originally you're just supposed to be nude, but I think they changed it to underwear, which
Yep.
I think is appreciated.
Probably wise, because otherwise you are. There are some public indecency laws you are definitely going to cross.
But at one point, if you're in the audience for this, you can volunteer to do the underwear run. We saw it at, I think, Animate a couple years ago. Might have been Galaxy, whichever one, a few years before we started doing the pod.
Yeah.
And it was a great group of people having a blast with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had the guy who played Brad there.
Mm-hmm. Who said, I don't know what you're talking about. Brad is no one's favorite character.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody said that Brad was their favorite character. He thinks they're an idiot. So, yeah.
Quick change prank.
Oh. So this is a very specific us thing. So there's one particular dress you have in like 4 different colors now, because it's a fun dress.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point we brought both the blue version and the pink version of it, and then in the middle of the day, went into a private bathroom, got you out of the pink version into the blue one, or it might have been the other way around, and then just didn't comment and see how many people noticed. A couple of people noticed, one of whom was very confused by it, which was great. Like, that was pretty much the objective. Confuse one specific person.
The good parking. / illegal parking. It wasn't technically illegal.
So every con has good and bad parking.
Yeah. And sometimes if you have an inside scoop, you can get good parking.
Yep. So for example, if you happen to have a friend who works for a company that's located right next to the Columbus Convention Center.
It could be any company, really.
It could be any company. And they're willing to loan you their parking pass for the weekend because they're not using it, so you can park in that company's garage and have a 2-minute walk and pay nothing for it. I really wish that friend hadn't moved countries. That was super handy. But yeah, generally speaking, any hacks you can do to make the parking either cheaper or more accessible are great.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do anything illegal, obviously. But, leverage your friends. Have fun.
Yep. Nokia / old phone pics.
So, this is just generally some people who come to cons are on the older side and haven't updated their phones since they were flip phones.
Some of them aren't even that old. They just have flip phones. We don't judge. And they ask to take your pictures, and you're used to having iPhones and stuff pointed out to you. Instead, you have this Nokia phone that can barely take a picture, and it's kind of delightful.
It's kind of adorable.
Yeah.
And you'll just look at that going, how many pixels does that thing capture? 50?
YouTube con reviewers.
Okay, so we are YouTube con reviewers. Let's be honest about that. We this goes up in audio versions. This also goes up on YouTube. Incidentally, if you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube pleasantries for the love of God. Anyway, but there are certain YouTube con reviewers who we can't friggin' stand, and yet we keep hate watching their videos just to yell at how wrong they are.
Well, they're way bigger than we are.
They are way bigger than we are, so it's fine. We're not punching them down. It's just, generally speaking, the reason we hate their content is they're relentlessly negative about cons. They are constantly talking about how cons did this wrong or that wrong or the other wrong, and they'll frequently utter the phrase, "We had fun, but..." Whereas we try not to do that. We try to be con positive.
Yeah.
Yes, we will sometimes offer constructive criticism and feedback, but, generally speaking, cons should be fun. Okay.
2 more things?
Okay.
The clown room.
The clown room existed in our hearts.
We never did find the clown room. I think the clown room was in that back thing, alcove thing that we went to this year.
That would make sense.
I'm mad we didn't go to it last year when it was the clown room.
I mean, that wasn't anywhere near where it claimed it was on the map.
I know, but the map looked completely wrong anyway.
In case anybody's not familiar, Con on the Cob is a very strange little board game con. And the first year we were there, we noticed that they had a clown room on their map. And we were like, well, that's weird. We should go look at that. We searched the entire venue. We did not find the clown room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was still on the map.
And we're going to ask anyone, because you don't ask people about the clown room. If you ask people about the clown room, you are not worthy of the clown room.
Nope. Next.
So this is the final one. The Artemis Bridge Simulator.
Hi, Patrick. Hope you've been listening.
So the Artemis Bridge Simulator itself probably isn't that low, but it is because of this in-joke.
Yeah. So, the reason we like to mention Artemis Bridge Simulator at cons is that our first ever episode was on Concoction, which we'll be doing again this year, I believe. And we, they had an Artemis Bridge Simulator, and we forgot to mention it. And I posted the episode in their Facebook page, and the person who ran the Artemis Bridge Simulator commented that, that was also there. We mentioned it. And that person, as far as I know, is still listening to our con, or to our podcast. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Again, I do need to reach out to the other person that put me in contact with to try and arrange that. One of the things on our to-do list this week is to get that Discord server for the interviews set up and organized and tested.
Because I know there's quite a few of you, if you happen to be listening to this episode, who we said we would interview.
Yes.
We're trying to get that set up this week, so we'll be able to do it in weeks going forward.
Yes.
And maybe release some of those around April when we have a few weeks off in theory. It's kind of regular episodes.
Yeah, that sounds like a rough plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our plan. So, is there anything else we want to talk about in this Con Iceberg?
We're almost home, and this is a very long Con Iceberg, so.
Yeah, this episode's nearly, it's over 2.5 hours.
Yeah, well, I know what you expected.
Yeah.
We go to a lot of cons.
We do. There's a lot to talk about. So, generally speaking, that's the Con Iceberg. There's a lot of stuff.
Do you feel like you understand what icebergs are now?
Yes.
Okay.
I understood the meme before.
Now, you asked me what they were. Like, when I first said, let's do a Con Iceberg episode, you were like, what's an iceberg?
Well, the second you began to explain, I knew exactly what you mean, because I've seen I have seen the memes.
Do you think I did a good job of, putting things at different levels?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to tell me if I did or not, you can comment below. If you're on YouTube. If not, just email us.
Yep. concoverpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
So, yeah. Hopefully you had fun. I fully understand if you did not listen to all of this episode. This one was rambly at best.
Yeah, I realized we didn't really go to a con this weekend, but I think we needed a break. In fairness, we were supposed to go to ZipCon this weekend, then they moved dates. So, that's on them.
Yep.
So we probably will not be going to that one next week when it actually is. Instead, we're going to CincyCon.
Yes.
Which, they have a ticketing system that's interesting, and we're going to have to talk a lot about that.
Yeah, we'll talk a bunch about how because they use tabletop events, but they also
do some weird stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So, yeah. So, next week, CincyCon.
Yes.
Where we'll be playing some hopefully interesting games.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten what we've signed up for, but that's the advantage of tabletop events. I can just look it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.